rising, steps up and throws to the end zone, and Dixon is in. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Here's Gordon again. Jump cut in the hole. Bust it to the outside. And Gordon diving for the end zone. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Now the throw across the middle. That was caught. And on a broken tackle, J.P. Richardson. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And here's Green. He's going to keep it. And Green breaks loose. Garrett Green across midfield and forced out of bounds at about the 25 by D. Winters.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lance Leipold's group with the 14-zip lead on Matt Campbell's Iowa State team. And Jalen Nolan is out to the races. Down the sideline. Noel tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
R.J. Harvey, direct snap. He keeps it, and now UCF has a touchdown to start the ball game.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
And here we go. 365 Sports on what now is officially the week the 2024 college football season begins because of that game in Ireland between FSU and Georgia Tech. We'll have an FSU writer today. Also, Georgia Tech analyst and writer will be on the show Wednesday. It is also, I saw this note from Alan Bowman. I didn't send this to Jack. Happy first day of 19th grade, Alan Bowman. Happy first day of 19th grade. Let me give you a stat. When he made his Texas Tech debut in 2000, now has 260 of them. And now Bowman playing yet one more year at Oklahoma State.
We had it. It was on the list. Okay,
Oh,
now
okay, I'm
we
sorry.
got it. We got it. Yeah, you know, I add things to the list sometimes and then forget to tell you I added them in the middle. But yeah, there you go. His cute little backpack he's got on there.
Remember those pictures the first day of school back when you were in kindergarten all the way up to Mom? That kind of thing.
Mine happened in about third grade. It was like, can we just go to school? Can we just go?
Get on the bus
Yeah.
or have somebody drop you off or drive yourself.
Go, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. You know, hopefully this is it because as much as I think Alan Bowman seems like a great dude, and he's obviously a pretty good quarterback. I'm kind of at the point I think most people are with the COVID guys of like, all right, we need to kind of get past the 7th year standard being like that, like not standard, but like 7 years now suddenly being like average. You know what I mean? That's
like we don't blink.
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily a great thing for the game. It's great for Alan Bowman. It's great for Oklahoma State. It's great for Utah and Cam Rising and various other examples. So not taking away anything from him. That's great. But, yeah, I don't love the 7th-year quarterback in college football. You know, I've seen when people get on their imagination trains and they come up with all the ideas of, like, how the sport could be worse off in the future, you know, like super leagues and things. It's like, let's just get rid of eligibility. Like, have you ever seen that when coming across Twitter? And it's like, absolutely positive. Like, I'm done if we get rid of eligibility. But it almost feels like that when you see, like, Alan Bowman, Cam Rising, and various others who are in their 7th years. So, yeah, that's not something that's, I think, going to be commonplace nearly as much as we've seen the last couple of seasons, but good on him, and I know there's big expectations for Oklahoma State, so let's see if it's a lucky number 7 for Alan Bowman and the Cowboys.
There are a couple of reports, one from Matt Zenitz from 247 CBS Sports, that DeQuan Finn has been named the starting quarterback for Baylor as they open up, of course, on Saturday, a week from this weekend. We are awaiting confirmation. I sent a note to Brent Ingram at Baylor. This would not be a surprise, and it would be a surprise if he wasn't named the starter, although Sawyer Robertson, obviously a very young, talented player. Do you know there's only a couple of guys that were ranked higher than him coming out of high school? One of them's name was Caleb Williams, and there was one other like that. And I still go back to the fact that he was recruited by Mike Leach to play quarterback in that offense. But DeQuan Finn from Toledo, he has been named quarterback one, according to a couple of reports. And, again, Baylor had their second scrimmage on Saturday evening.
Baylor has not officially confirmed that yet, but, I mean, it would still shock me that if he wasn't. And, I thought when you go get a guy with 1 year of eligibility in today's transfer portal and pay him whatever money you're paying him, which, was not cheap, usually he's going to wind up being the starter first right out of the gate. I don't think anybody at Baylor has promised anything this year because – it is whatever can get you out of a 3-9 hole from last year. So if it's DeQuan Finn, it's DeQuan Finn. If it's Sawyer Robertson eventually, it's going to be Sawyer Robertson. If it's somebody else, it's going to be somebody else. That's just how it's going to be. But so for now, it's DeQuan Finn. But and hopefully for Baylor, it sticks that way because it means that they're successful in winning. But they don't. Nobody has any promises this year.
I hope I'm not bringing this up as a dark cloud. When was the last time you guys remember Baylor finished a year with a starting quarterback that played every game?
I mean, we talked about this a bunch of times. It hasn't happened for a really long time.
I can't remember.
We brought this up on several occasions where it's been since like 2015 maybe or something like that. So, yeah, it's been like nearly 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I think if you probably went across college football, that's probably the case for most teams. Like I guarantee you that there's more teams that have more than one starting quarterback per year on average than there are that have only one starting quarterback per year. I mean, I just think that injuries are rampant across no matter what league you're talking about. We see quarterbacks going down and out all the time. Like Jalen Hurts didn't play every game for Alabama. I know that's like unique, but I'm just saying like that's the first thing that pops into my head. Like Michael Penix played all the games, but I don't know. I think in college football you're more likely to see a couple of different quarterbacks play for just about every team out there at some point or another. For whatever reason, but DeQuan Finn was expected to be the guy the moment he got brought in. That's why you brought him in. You didn't bring him in to be anything but the starting quarterback. So to put an investment in him of at least six figures, as is the going rate for, I think, quarterbacks of his caliber and the spots they're trying to fill on your roster, if he wasn't named the starting quarterback, that would be the bigger news, honestly, than him being named the starting quarterback. Sawyer Robertson was brought in similarly, but not nearly as proven, and I doubt without as much in total promised up front because of the fact that he is less proven. He's a guy who's got talent to be a guy down the line, and maybe even at times this year if they call his number, but DeQuan Finn's already been there, done that, conference player of the year. That's who they brought in. They brought him in to be the guy. So, yeah, I would imagine he's been named the starting quarterback if Dave Aranda's made that official, and anything else would have been the bigger headline. But he's dynamic. He's got a lot of experience. He's an older guy. I think it's been surprising and probably for some people somewhat concerning that it's lasted all the way until 2 weeks before the first game, and he's just now being named the starter because you anticipate or you'd want him to come in and just blow you away and just force his way into being named the starter a lot quicker than that. But it also could have been just in a situation where Sawyer Robertson put in the work and he deserved to have the competition go longer to, put all into it that he could possibly put into it, and hopefully both guys are better off. But, yeah, DeQuan Finn, that should be the expectation that he would be the starter week number 1 against Tarleton State.
2015, Russell and Stidham. And so it was 14. Bryce Petty played 12 games. 13 he played in 13. It's been forever since all the games were started by the same quarterback. And I do think you're right. The ones who don't have that are the exception. I also think this was Sawyer Robertson, who I know battled for this job. If, in fact, he does not get many reps this year, Baylor's got a lot of work to do to make sure that they keep him in. They've got quarterbacks who are here, quarterbacks coming in. I don't think Sawyer Robertson's going to be any issue at all. I think he'll put his head down and just keep on competing.
See, here's what happens now is that now a starting quarterback's named, everybody's been clamoring for it, and then all of a sudden what happens? Instead of going, all right, now what? It's as far as, all right, DeQuan Finn's the quarterback, now what as far as the season goes? a segment of the website or the fandom will immediately start worrying about the backup quarterback and where he sits in things, right? Like all this time, the starter gets named. What's the first thing most people are going to do? Oh my God, what about Sawyer Robertson? Rather than like, okay, great. And you have to in today's day and age, but he can't go anywhere right now. So I look at it as, yeah, Sawyer Robertson down the line, if he's not named the starting quarterback, it has some options to make, but he kind of needs to see the field improve something because we haven't seen really all that much more of him than when he first arrived. We saw him play in some games and even start a little bit last year, but there was nothing that you walked away from going like, they better keep him happy or else he's going to go command 7 figures somewhere. And I know there's a demand for quarterbacks and he's got some talent, but it's like, let's also remember who he is too. And
he also played in that game with Utah. He was injured and had to play through it, and they basically had no other choice because Shapen was out.
Right, so he's played a little bit, but there's nothing that you're going like, oh my God, like we got to name him the starter. Or he's gonna leave. Like now it's all set in stone. If he gets the call, that's how he's gonna go make his money. Go out there and show to Baylor and show to NC State or whoever else you think might need a quarterback this offseason how much you're worth if you get that opportunity. That's all he's got to worry about now and helping this team win games. But the whole like worry of like, well, if we don't name this guy, that's over. The season started, the rosters are set. So you can worry about that at the end of the year. And look, if you have to worry about that because he played so well, then that's a good problem to have. But hopefully DeQuan Finn's just the guy and they can protect him. But with this offensive line, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and he's going to probably be on the run quite a bit. And I saw some of the articles that were written over the weekend about summaries of the scrimmage and how the offensive line improved. I'll believe that when I see it, with all due respect to Mason Miller and the players in that position group.
Well, look, they did not have improved that's not a many steps to take. It's not,
like 2 is twice as many as 1.
Yeah, they didn't go from, this isn't a couch to 10K right now run. This is a couch to off the couch.
Yeah,
like that's where they are right now.
I can't go to practice. Craig gets to go over there, but he's not going to watch much at all because it's more of an open period. We don't get to watch the scrimmages. I do a little bit of digging. And I told you the thought about what Mason Miller, that look in his eyes a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, my God. And he basically all but said that he was frustrated because it wasn't a great night. He didn't say that, but he was frustrated because of the standard. But they did hold out some of their frontline offensive linemen, whoever that might be, when they open up against Tarleton State. Arizona State has a starting quarterback. They have named Sam Levitt, the redshirt freshman, as the starting quarterback. Kenny Dillingham and company making that decision and commented on it today. After the workout, the Sun Devils will go with Sam Levitt.
Well, once Jaden Rashada transferred, and I don't know, like Jaden Rashada might have transferred also due in part to he might have not been beating out Sam Levitt the way he thought he was and was going to be in it for a while. This doesn't surprise me. Sam Levitt was pretty highly recruited when he went to Michigan State, so we'll see, what that means for Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham. I think they'll be better this year than they were a year ago, but I don't know if that puts them in a bowl game. But last year, right before the season started, the athletic director and, president kind of pulled the rug right out from under them with that NCAA suspension. I think it cast a pall over the season. Jaden Rashada wasn't the only quarterback that played. A bunch of different people played. Cam Scadaboo's a really exciting player to have. They've got other exciting players. So we'll see. But I'm not surprised by this at all.
I think Jaden Rashada leaving obviously was a blow just to your quarterback room and just your name power, because there's not really anybody that's probably getting too excited about seeing Sam Levitt named the starting quarterback. Maybe in Tempe they are, but nationally I don't think anybody's like shaking in their boots now. And not necessarily would they be if Jaden Rashada would. There's something that kind of comes with that name that you expect, like some star power, right? Whereas with Sam Levitt, I don't think you're expecting too much. So the good news is I don't think you're going to be rolling anywhere where people are like have these gaudy expectations for you. You can go out there and prove a lot of people wrong how they feel about you right now. That includes Sam Levitt. Not a lot of people are going to be talking about Arizona State to start this season and haven't been most of this offseason. They're a team that when you set the rankings of the Big 12, they're in that bottom tier. I'd say they're usually accompanied by BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston most often in that bottom tier. All those teams can put themselves in a different spot and be the West Virginia of last year to prove the haters wrong. But I do think that, that's just not really inspiring when the guy you beat out is Jeff Sims. I mean, and I think we all, kind of know his situation. So, I don't go crazy over this. I'm excited for Arizona State to have the decision made. I think when you're talking about, is it going to be Sam Levitt, is it going to be Jeff Sims? And Sam Levitt was the easy choice to make there. So I don't think this comes as much of a surprise, but I don't think it also, gets people super excited in Tempe as far as the season coming around the corner. But I do think there is an element of unknown now with Kenny Dillingham having the no bowl thing, not going to be a distraction or anything like that this season. They've been able to just focus on the season and focus on, hey, if we do win 6 games, we're going to go to the postseason. If we do this is going to happen as well. I'm sure that will serve them well. But, yeah, in terms of star power, there's not much to this story, but it's a good decision to have that behind you, and you can just focus with Sam Levitt as a guy moving forward.
And then there's Boise State. We even discussed it with B.J. Raines last week. He covers Boise State, that they have their starting quarterback, and it is, there you go, Maddox Madsen, who is named as their starting quarterback. Of course, a lot of discussion. It was a great article about him last week in 5-star former USC commit in Malachi Nelson. He now is not going to start the season at quarterback. And I did see a note or two from Madsen, a couple of quotes from him today about how Malachi Nelson has handled the last day or two since, in fact, all of this was going to be known. And Boise State has named Maddox Madsen. This is a team that has a chance to make the college football playoff with that group of 5 slot down the road.
Yeah, they certainly do. They should be pretty good. They got a schedule that lines up for them. I think outside the way, I always thought, well, Malachi Nelson's going there because he can start there and it's a more comfortable situation for him. But when we talked to Raines, BJ Raines last week, he was like, no, Maddox Madsen's kind of the leader in the clubhouse right now, and Malachi Nelson hasn't really quite been healthy all this time. So certainly interesting from the perspective of, you kind of thought going from USC as a 5-star to Boise State, he would kind of maybe hit the ground running there, but he needs some more time, and it sounds like he's comfortable with that. That might be where he needs to be in his life. And I think, we forget that, there was a time where playing quarterback as a true or even redshirt freshman was kind of a weird thing. Right after the kind of JV era ended where there was a junior varsity team. But from, I want to say about 1977 on, if you said, hey, we've got a true freshman or redshirt freshman starting quarterback, it was either really good news or really bad news. And because you had, a Peyton Manning or something like that, or you had injuries and you just having to start this true or redshirt freshman, most of the time it's sophomores, juniors, seniors that are your starters.
Yep.
I mean, historically, it's changed a little bit now.
Yeah, we kind of got tipped off to this last week, and I think the bigger story probably for most people is just the Malachi Nelson factor of, here's this former 5-star quarterback who's not even able to win the job at Boise after not being able to win it at USC. And I don't say not even disrespectfully, but, a former 5-star guy, you go from USC to Boise State, shouldn't you be expected to win the job there? I think that certainly should have been your individual expectation, and so that's not going to happen right now. Maybe it does at some point for Malachi Nelson. Don't know what is up next for him other than being Boise State's backup. But Spencer Danielson said he just hasn't mastered the offense. And sometimes we get so caught up in all the other loud noises that it could be just as simple as that. So, yeah, 5-star ranking, that's cool. USC transfer, that's neat. Upside galore, yeah, probably. But does he know the offense? No. Okay, well, then the other guy gets the job. It's really that simple. So good on Maddox Madsen for upending, a lot of the expectations that people had for Boise State as far as the quarterback spot. And he's going to have to prove it right away. I mean, they play Georgia Southern, they play Oregon, they play Washington State in week 4. So he and Malachi Nelson both are going to need to be ready for that first month of games, because they could, for as much talk as there is about G5 champ and G5 rep and all this, they could be like 1-3 leaving the first month of the season. I mean, really. So, yeah, he's going to get tested right away, and I'm anxious to see him because there's obviously a lot to like about Boise, starting with that running back in Ashton Genty.
All right, so there are some quarterback decisions news. Here's one about a career. Colt McCoy. What an incredible player he was at Texas. Then went on to play for a long time, well over a decade, nearly 15 years in the NFL. He has announced that he's retiring from football. He will join the coverage for NBC Sports college football. And one of the games that he has is that second week game between Nebraska and Colorado. And, Paul, you were talking about this with some of NBC's broadcast. This isn't Notre Dame, but he will now become an analyst for NBC.
No, I look forward to seeing how Colt can do. I think he's been on the show, I don't know, 5-6 times, over the years, and he's always had a great personality, and he's kind of the flashpoint character in Texas's recent college football history. The moment he got hurt in that national championship game was the moment it went off the tracks for them for a decade. Like, not just that half in that game. It went off the tracks for a decade.
We're still hearing, had Colt McCoy not been hurt, and we will for the rest of our lives. And I mean, truly, that's something Texas fans, can really, kind of pretend like they don't care about certain things, but that is one thing that is a bee in their bonnet that will never go away.
Yeah. If anybody out there has seen Deadpool and Wolverine, he's their anchor being. He was their anchor being for a while. And after that, but yeah, I think he'll do a good job. I'm curious to see, how he does. I do like that he's not automatically going to the Big 12 or the SEC where he will have to cover teams that people would assume that he knows, because I think it's going to show how much Colt McCoy just knows football. Sometimes, let's put this guy on this because he was here and familiar, but maybe he doesn't, it makes him a little more comfortable. But, yeah, he's going to be doing Big Ten. Well, he might know Colorado a little bit.
He's played in the NFL for nearly 15 years.
So
he knows a lot. He'll be fine.
He'll be
I
good.
always thought of him as a really good interview. He's not outspoken, but that's something. He has plenty of confidence in what he'll be talking about.
I think they need to up the level of the Notre Dame broadcast, and by bringing Dan Hicks in this year, that will certainly help. Jason Garrett on the Notre Dame broadcast,
Yeah, I think he'll be fine, whatever he ends up doing as far as game assignments or studio work or whatever. I think he's a pretty sharp guy and has done enough interviews, podcasts, especially here in the later part of his career that I've come across, including on this show, that he handles himself really well, and I'd expect no different, no matter what that entails as far as a media job goes. So, yeah, I can definitely see that being a big part of his future. And, congrats to him on being able to go out on his own terms after a long, storied career spanning back to his high school days at Jim Ned. I mean, an incredible player, a Texas Hall of Famer, not just as the university rep, but the state in general. He's a Texas Sports Hall of Famer, UT Hall of Famer, obviously, as well. So, yeah, tremendous career, and a guy who I have a lot of respect for. I know that Paul knew his wife a little bit. She used to be around here in, I guess,
Rachel,
her early days. And they appear to have a beautiful family, so I'm sure he's going to enjoy that a lot more. But imagine 10-plus years, in the NFL. That's nothing to sneeze at. Had some starts in there, had some moments, had some ups and downs, but had a really long career, and now, is healthy and can go and enjoy, still being around the game. So I think that's great for him.
He played, I think it was 13 years. Browns, 49ers, long time with Washington. 2014 to 19, played with the Giants. The last couple of years was on the Cardinals. And when he was called upon, he did a pretty good job being the heartbeat away. And in fact, one of his best moments was with Washington. He came into Dallas and beat the Cowboys on like a Sunday night or a Monday night, which was one of his better games. Obviously, I love the guy. Very good guy. You said it, Craig. Jim Ned High School, tremendous player, Hall of Famer, basically. I don't know if that's official yet in college, but he will be for what he did and was for a long time. Remember, until who was Kellen Moore, the all-time leaders in wins when it comes to quarterbacks in college football. So he now joins the staff at NBC. One other note, Texas, Quinn Ewers will be one of the featured parts of Fansville. The seventh year that the Fansville will be airing with Dr. Pepper. Quinn Ewers, the athlete chosen to be a part of it. I think last year was it Caleb Williams who was a part of it. So
Bryce
Quinn
Young
Ewers,
the year before.
Bryce Young, Fansville will be featuring UT quarterback Quinn Ewers.
All right, I guess go win that Heisman then. I feel like that's the company you're a part of, as those guys went and got that statue, and there's plenty of people that think Quinn Ewers is one of the favorites to do that this year. So I think whereas when he first came out of high school, there was all that to do about his eventual decision, and then Ohio State. And then there was tons of teasing from Texas people who clearly were being told, despite all that, they're like, yeah, he's probably going to end up back here at some point, because it wasn't a surprise when he did that. You know what I mean? Like, even if you weren't following it closely. And there was a lot of, I remember Texas reporters like almost like a told you so kind of a thing back then. So he had all that at the beginning. The fact that he had enrolled early, so he was younger than others by the time he had arrived at Texas who had been through similar, you know. So I think we kind of forgot about that. But because of all that, he put such a target on his own back of the, you know, just the big decision of going away from the home state and going to Ohio State, and then leaving Ohio State to go back to your home state and then go to Texas. And so there was so much kind of drama, if you will, around him. And then he's now had a couple years under his belt, and he's at times been really good. And there's times where he's fine, and there's times where he makes a mistake like anybody else. But I think this is the year. This is the year for Quinn Ewers to be that 5-star, you know, worldly talent, trying out for the next level, to be a top draft pick and all those things, help lead Texas to a national championship potentially, and certainly help guide them successfully through this first year in the SEC. This is where you look at him and you go, all right, this is the year now where the expectations are as real as they're going to be, because this is it. This is the last run. So let's see what he can do, because the pressure's now on his shoulders. And it isn't one of those like people putting too much pressure on him as a true freshman because how they feel about how he moved off the field. You know, like now it's like, no, you played a bunch of games. You're a veteran. You're a leader. Go take him where you can take him. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think, I think, and I feel like I saw a note, and I forgot who was the one that put it up, but Sarkisian was discussing that they had a players-only meeting earlier in this camp, fall camp, and Quinn Ewers is the one that called it, where before it might have been Whittingham or Jordan Whittington, or Jalen Ford, or someone like that, and it was Ewers, who this is the year. You're right. The clock is running on him with the high expectations and his future, eventually, you would think, in the National Football League. Former TCU quarterback Max Duggan, who had that remarkable year in 2022, has been released by the Chargers, according to Tom Pelissero. Not a surprise. I wasn't sure if he would hold on, and doesn't mean it's over because players bounce around. But he is no longer, at least for now, a part of the NFL.
Sounds like his head coach is a little bitter. Just saying.
Yeah, possibly.
Pissed off about,
the game that everybody tries to pretend didn't happen. TCU beating Michigan. They just, leap over that and pretend like that game never existed for some reason. We know the reasons why you would do that. But, that's not the first time he's been released. He's kind of bounced around the NFL purgatory as guys do, of being on a roster, being off a roster, being on, kind of not ever knowing where you are for too long. And so that's not too much of a surprise because I've seen this headline before. But he's a guy that clearly made his mark in Fort Worth, but I don't know, and I never had huge expectations for him at the NFL level. So if he's able to latch on somewhere else, great. If not, and we see him in the UFL or whatever, that wouldn't surprise me either, because he's just never a guy I pegged as being a huge factor when it came to the National Football League. So,
all right, so there's that. Over the weekend, Houston found their AD, and this is a quote from Dan Radakovich, from Miami. Houston made a home run hire with Eddie Nunez, who comes in from New Mexico, a visionary leader, and is someone who will work tirelessly to position the Cougars for success. I saw a couple of quotes from their president that they are going to go heavy into raising more money for athletics to get it up, even though they've done a hell of a job since they entered the Big 12, even before that when they started to know they were going to be a part of the Big 12, that he apparently is a money-making or producing type revenue stream.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised to see the athletic director position, much like the college president position, stop being guys who were, he's in college athletics, but you have to be a fundraiser first now. You absolutely have to be a fundraiser first. And if you can't do that, then you probably need another role, because that's what this job is now. You have to fundraise, and then you have to, be the CEO of your coaches.
Fundraising, you have to hire good coaches.
Yes. You have to hire coaches and administrators above those coaches who can do everything you tell them to do so that you can fundraise.
I agree.
Yeah, you can't. You have to have those times where a coach retires or you fire a coach or you have to make those decisions. But day-to-day operations, everything you do probably before you even get to all that is about fundraising.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad Houston could finally find their leader, and it's been a long search. I think a lot longer than maybe some people expected. This name started to really gain some traction towards the end of last week, and kind of appeared that he would be the guy. So I'm glad that's official, and glad that Houston fans can now sleep well for at least a few days, having this behind them, and can just focus primarily on football season now that you have your athletic director in place. So he's not one that has to roll in and worry about a football coach hire anytime soon, thanks to the Willie Fritz addition this offseason, and doesn't have to worry about men's basketball anytime soon, thanks to Kelvin Sampson's success. So I don't know what else is on the to-do list right now, but your two major sports are in pretty good hands, I would say, and you don't have to worry about coming in and starting anew there. But you do clearly need to start raising some money, because that's the thing that you hear about Houston constantly is the money piece, and so that's what he's there to do. And let's see him get started and get off the ground, and hopefully bring in a lot of cash for the Cougs.
Liam Rooney will be our first guest today. He covers Florida State for the Tallahassee Democrat. This is the first week. He'll join us in the next segment. Also, Essen Kasim, he used to cover Florida State, now with USA Today, will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. And we will have a Georgia Tech, as I mentioned earlier, a Georgia Tech writer from Ireland will join us on Wednesday. Louisville, they lost James Thrash, who last year had nearly 900 yards receiving. They brought in transfer from South Alabama, Lacey, out for the year. 91 catches, 1,316 yards, and 7 touchdowns for South Alabama last year. And Louisville loses what is a huge part, especially with them losing Thrash. And now they don't have Lacey for this year.
Yeah, Colin Lacey broke his collarbone, and they're in practice or scrimmage over the weekend. He's already had surgery, and he was, I think, he wasn't their biggest grab in the transfer portal. Now, a couple of those guys kind of came and went because they had a really weird spring. One of those, Penny Boone, and there's a defensive player whose name escapes me. But Colin Lacey was someone they were relying on to replace Jabari Thrash, who was one of the better receivers in the country last year, that I think kind of toiled in anonymity, because every week I think people would look and go, oh, look, Louisville won again. Oh, that's cute. I wonder when they're going to lose. And they didn't lose until the end, or they didn't lose and were knocked out of the playoff until the very end of the season in the conference race. So, but yeah, that's a tough loss for them. And they're already going to be white-knuckling it all year long, because their starting quarterback is likely to be Tyler Shuck, and he's never made it through a season healthy.
There's that story on one of the players who was injured. I'm going to wait on the All-American talk. We got the All-American team released by the AP. We'll do that later in the show. Now, a couple of notes as the season is about to start. Brent Zerneman with this nugget. There was a fundraiser, and 4 tickets and pregame sideline passes for the Texas and A&M game on November 30th just went for $19,500 at a Bryan ISD education fundraiser. By the way, that Bryan College Station is a connection to those two cities. Second best part is John Michael Montgomery is about to take the stage, and they raised even more money. 4 tickets, nearly $20,000, sideline passes, which gets you on the field prior to the game, and a few other, I guess you could say, perks. That is how valuable. And, of course, you've got bangers. When you do these auctions, you got to bring the people in to have money, too.
Getting John Michael Montgomery at a Bryan ISD charity function is
I bet Pee-Poo and Mimu were just swinging around, baby, just loving it up.
That's a heck of a pull getting, I swear, for that deal. But yeah, $19,500 for those 4 tickets. Holy cow. And my favorite part of this is we can pretend like they don't care, like the whole we don't care about each other thing is over now. Like that's it. Like there was, a decade plus of they don't matter anymore. You sing about each other in the songs, you still matter to each other. It's never going to stop. So now we can do that, and it shows you how passionate people are about it, that almost $20,000 goes down for 4 tickets and sideline pass game.
Well, I mean, John Michael Montgomery's got some hits, so I bet that was a fun little show afterwards, and good for the folks of Bryan to, show their pride and have a package like that available for folks to sit there and be able to bid on to make this tweet happen, so we could have something to talk about when it comes to this rivalry. And I think probably a lot of people were wondering what kind of little news and notes would you get out of the fact that this game's been resumed? Like, how much are people going to be willing to pay for tickets? I know I wondered that before, like in the past few months, of just what kind of stories are we going to hear surrounding that game and that rivalry now that it's been reignited after all of the decade plus, as Paul mentioned, of them pretending like they didn't care about each other, which we all knew was just pretend. But there's this passion that's been reignited that both sides try to just sort of ignore or just maneuver around or whatever, and we'd get a little taste of it in baseball and a little taste in basketball, but now it's football time, baby. And I actually thought that was a little bit of a low number, honestly. I did. I thought it might even be higher than that for the game package you're talking about, but 20 G's is nothing light, so I know I could afford that.
I saw that most of the tickets, in fact, I saw maybe even a Texas fan, this is 2 or 3 weeks ago, when someone said that they were online available for like $1,500 for a ticket. He's like, where can I get that?
Yeah, I think it's a hell of a deal if you can get that right now. So I think like when you're talking the package of like suites and things, the parking passes and like, 20,000-ish is probably about right. But even like initially I was like, well, that sounds low just because it just feels like everything's going to be the biggest it's ever been because this is the first game in so long. So that's not crazy, I think, to hear a package like that going for big money like that, and we're going to hear probably more examples of that as the game draws closer.
One other note about a game.
I do want to mention the history of that game real quick and how people like scalpers used to like quintuple the prices as opposed to double back in the day. My dad and I used to try to go when we were in Austin visiting my grandparents for Thanksgiving, and the Run Ricky Run year, that when he broke 98. The record in 98, we went and we're walking outside, and a guy said, hey, you two need tickets? $500 a piece. And my dad was like, if I pay you $1,000 and then Ricky Williams breaks this record and we lose this game, I'm going to be pissed, so no. And so
you could have sold the tickets because he did break the record.
Yeah. Right after that, a guy walked up to us and goes, how much was that guy asking? And I was like, $500 a piece. And we walked off, and he goes, man, you better not turn around. You just got that guy arrested. And sure enough, I did.
Oh, my God. Oh, my Lord. Hell of a story. LSU and USC, September 1st, their opener in Vegas has been sold out. More than 60,000 tickets. LSU-USC will be one of those great early games. Allegiant Stadium, which hosted the Super Bowl, will also host the college football playoff game in 2027. So that game is now a sellout. That's it. Let's do that. We'll break and come back, start with our guests. There's a lot more to get to. Dennis Dodd with some interesting nuggets, by the way, we'll get to later in the show on 9-3. And what would have happened had the college football playoff been in existence even 30 years ago? How many 9-3 teams on average per year would have made the college football playoff? But Liam Rooney is next from the Tallahassee Democrat. We have football this weekend, and not just Florida State, Georgia Tech, but it's the start. And this is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, LowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be. As you get older, normally when you start to get into your 40s and slide towards 50, your testosterone level can kind of drop. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, including something as simple as your energy or sleep habits, or you just don't feel right. And it also could affect you, of course, in the bedroom, too, with ED and sex drive issues. That's what testosterone does. It feeds your system with what you need, and when you get older and it starts to drop, you lose that opportunity or that ability. Dr. Petty can help you out at pettycliniclowt.com.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends. In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Liam Rooney covers Florida State for the Tallahassee Democrat. He'll be in Dublin for the game coming up, of course, on the 24th, which is coming up. This is the first week of the college football season, and a lot of people get involved the following week. Liam, you're on with Paul and Craig. David Smoke, we appreciate your time. Has this team basically been focused on what matters and has not been in any ways caught up in all the stuff about what might be the future in the ACC?
Yeah, absolutely. Any future ACC talks just don't seem to be impacting these guys at all. Coach Mike Norvell has them very, very focused. You ask any of the guys, and it's just full steam ahead for Georgia Tech and what lies after that. It really doesn't seem like their future in the ACC or wherever it may lie has really impacted their preparation or thoughts about this season at all.
Liam, there's a lot of changes for this team. DJ Uiagalelei, takes over at quarterback, and while he'll probably be fine, it might be a dip from Jordan Travis. They don't have a Keon Coleman. They don't have a Johnny Wilson. Jaheim Bell was a nice pickup for them. Trey Benson is gone, but the offensive line is intact and deeper. Do you think that is what will get them through finding who they are as an offense in the first few weeks?
Absolutely. I think what they have in that offensive line room is versatility. A lot of those guys are able to move across and shuffle around the line, and it really gives a talented running back room that they have a chance to kind of find those creases and find those holes. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's what the consensus has been, is that the first few weeks that offensive line is really going to be leaned on because they have experience, they have the ability to kind of give you Uiagalelei time in the pocket, and if they're going to run the football, get a hole for those extra yardages that you're looking for. So I think they're going to be a big part, not just in the early season, but just throughout the year, and what Florida State's going to want to do. And I think you'll see early on that you could be seeing a heavy dose of the running game.
Liam, it seems like ever since DJU arrived, there's been nothing but positive headlines and just reactions, and his teammates, his coaches all seem to have a lot of praise for the guy. Can you just kind of explain how this transition has happened and what it's been like, throughout the spring and the past few months of him just kind of ingratiating himself?
Yeah, DJ came in around that December transfer portal or winter transfer portal time and came to the spring practices and really looked sharp during those practices. The spring game, I'm sure he'd admit to it too, was far from his best, but it was kind of one of those feeling out processes for him alongside a number of transfer players in their first experience in a game-like scenario for Florida State. But this fall, he's really taken a leap. He looks like the DJ Uiagalelei we saw in Corvallis at Oregon State last year. And I think for Florida State, that's huge. You kind of mentioned earlier, Jordan Travis is gone, and DJ is not Jordan Travis. They have some similarities, but they are vastly different quarterbacks, and especially when it comes to, Jordan's ability to move around in the pocket. So he has kind of learned how to adapt that offense to what his skill set is and what his strengths are. And I think that's probably been the most impressive thing to watch during this set of fall camp. And these last, I'd say about 5 to 6 practices, we've really seen the best of what DJ Uiagalelei can do for this Florida State offense. And, he's taken that leadership role that you want to see out of not just your quarterback, but a veteran star transfer. I even saw today he gifted his teammates all custom Beats headphones. So, he's doing his part to kind of win the trust and earn the trust of his teammates, not just on the field, but as well in the locker room.
Is it more fair to judge him? I mean, obviously the most recent is last year at Oregon State. Or how much do you have to judge him on what was a Clemson offense under Brandon Streeter that wound up changing offensive coordinators and has scuffled even since then?
I think you got to take both into account. I think obviously we have our most recent look at Oregon State in an offense that kind of catered to his skill set a little bit more. But, you can't look past Clemson, and especially when that is a lot of the similar opposition he's going to be facing now. But I think the situation here with Norvell and Alex Atkins and the way they like to run their offense, I think DJ will be more suited for something like he did at Oregon State last year. He seems to connect well with these wide receivers. He's fitting in much better than he did earlier in the spring, and it just seems to be the game is slowing down for him. So I think you got to look at what happened at Oregon State last year, but you have to consider what we saw at Clemson, because that is, again, such a big part of what makes DJ Uiagalelei as a college quarterback. So that game against Georgia Tech is really for him a chance to maybe prove some people wrong or just kind of silence some doubts about, what he can do. And it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Liam, every year a team is brand new, even if they have guys coming back or not. Every team is a new a version of itself. You mentioned at the top that this team has not, let any of the ACC talk or any of that kind of seep in. How have they handled just the stuff from last year being brought up? What's that just sort of been like in terms of moving on from the snub? And do you feel like there's any lingering effects or any lingering hangover still sort of surrounding the program from what occurred a year ago?
I think, the biggest thing with the snub when you look at this year's team, and especially for those guys that were part of last year's group, it's a motivating factor for them. A lot of them still feel maybe they were wrong to be left out. They feel hard done by, all the natural feelings you would expect in that scenario. And they've kind of used that as fuel to provide a better performance this year from themselves and, just kind of lift that team spirit. But honestly, especially with so many transfers coming in to make up this offense and this defense, there's not too much being said about it. I think start of the year, they kind of had their moments where like, hey, this is our first action since that happened, since that Georgia game. But now with Georgia Tech on the horizon and what is going to be a long season ahead of them, they kind of pushed it in the rear view. And I think, it'll be something they'll probably talk about internally, maybe to motivate the group, but it really hasn't been much of a factor. It's almost, for better or worse, the tunnel vision on the season. They're not trying to have any outside noise or distractions kind of seep in. And so far, it seems like it's worked for Norvell and his coaching staff. And, when asked about it, they don't really talk much about it anymore. It just kind of seems like, it happened. We took it on the chin. We're here now, and it's a different team. And I think that's kind of what they've been pushing.
All right. So you're going to Dublin, right?
Yes.
The team leaves Wednesday evening or whenever it is on Wednesday. Then, of course, the game is on Saturday morning, 11 o'clock Central Time here in Texas on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to Ireland before? And I was told, somebody told me you might have dual citizenship. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I am a dual citizen. My parents are from Ireland, so I, through their citizenship program, I'm a dual citizen. So I've been to Ireland a number of times, and it's great. It's a great country. Dublin's a great city, and it's really cool to have the two worlds kind of combined to see Florida State, the team I cover for my job, playing in the city that I spent a lot of time in. So it's pretty cool. And now with game week here, a lot of the guys are finally on the team, finally like, oh man, we're playing football, but in another country, and it's pretty surreal.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that with a name like Liam Rooney.
Well, if I said my middle name, it would have been a dead giveaway. So there's that. So
Liam, this is a defense under Adam Fuller that was elite last year, to say the least. Now, losing Braden Fisk and Jared Verse not going to help you stay elite, but they seem to have replaced that, although are they maybe lacking some of the depth up front that they have? It feels to me like they might be better at linebacker, but a little less deep, even though skilled on the defensive line.
Defensive line, some of these freshmen and redshirt freshmen who, they were part of the program last year have really come into camp and shown a lot of good stuff. A guy in particular, KJ Sampson, another young guy, Daniel Lyons, they've been really impressive on that defensive front. And they could add that depth. The thing you look at with them, kind of to your point of a lack of depth, is experience. In-game experience obviously they weren't playing as much last season as you would expect. But with guys like Patrick Payton, the duo of Joshua Farmer and Darrell Jackson, who will get that full season now, and the transfer of Marvin Jones Jr., I think that front four gives them something similar to what they had last year. But you do have some rotational questions that will have to be answered. I think it's just not a lack of talent, more just it takes a while to get up to speed in this sport, and just how quickly can these guys in the heat of battle, kind of adjust to the style of play and the quickness and physicality of it. But I think as the season goes along, that depth will grow stronger simply because of the experience that some of those younger guys are going to have.
We know Haynes King incredibly well. His father's amazing state championship resume in high school at Longview. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, he went to A&M. That's where he committed. It didn't work out there. And he has been very productive at Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. He threw a lot of picks last year. What is Florida State? What are they thinking about when they have to try to handle Haynes King this weekend?
Yeah, well, the big thing with Haynes is, he's also able to make plays with his legs. Mm-hmm. And that's something that they haven't overlooked. It's definitely something that they want to prepare for, but trying to limit the speed of the skill positions to make it harder for Haynes to go through his reads has been a big thing. They have a lot of speed at that receiver position and in the running back room. So, you want to give your defensive line time to get to Haynes King, have those linebackers, be able to spy or keep up with him if needed. When he gets out of the pocket. So I think that's the big thing is, give the defensive line time to work through that offensive line of Georgia Tech and put pressure on Haynes. And, he is a fantastic quarterback. And like you said, though, the one thing that maybe they want to look at is he did force a couple passes that led to turnovers. And maybe that's the thought process. If we can put him under pressure, we might be able to, utilize these defensive backs that are very, very good for Florida State. And maybe they'll be able to get a couple interceptions. But I think the big thing is just allowing the defensive line time to kind of make him make a quick decision.
Liam, how much of practice do you guys get to watch? It feels, following along with the Tallahassee media's tweets, that you guys get to watch like almost full practices where most media get to see stretching.
Yeah, we get pretty much the full practices. We're able to view a large portion of it. We have our periods where we're able to shoot video, take notes and all that, and then others are just strictly viewing periods. But we get a good amount of access, especially compared to other, Power 5 programs where I have buddies and friends who cover other Power 5 programs, and, they tell me about, like you said, you get stretching and maybe the first 5 minutes of drills, and then you kind of have to stick out and wait for press conferences. So we do get a good deal of access, which helps out, obviously, when you're trying to look ahead at what this team can be.
One more thing about Ireland. What is the difference in McDonald's in Ireland compared to the United States? I saw where the media scrum, you tried to give some people some knowledge.
So it's the chicken and the meat is just so much fresher. Ireland, big in farmland, big in farms. So they really just use like straight from up the road, really. Fresh chicken, fresh meat, and you can really taste that difference. The question was funny about, what we're looking forward to and the food, and Malik Benson straight away to McDonald's. I caught everybody off guard. So he's got a point. It does taste different, but I told everybody they have to bring me their report back and see what they think about the differences over there versus here. It's cool as heck that you now are assigned with the Tallahassee Democrat to cover FSU, and they're playing that opening game against Georgia Tech this weekend in Ireland, where you have a lot of connections. Thanks a lot, Liam. Great stuff today. Appreciate your time. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Liam Rooney with us, a Tallahassee Democrat. By the way, I just saw this note from Joseph Duarte, the University of Houston Board of Regents, the system, meeting will request approval of $10 million in liquidation from the UH Core Pool Quasi-Endowment to fund a loan to the UH Athletics Department for operating and covering expenses. That's a little unique. Yeah. Maybe it's happened more than I thought.
Is it? I have no idea if it is or not. That's a lot of words that I don't even understand fully. So
check my last board meeting notes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I'm genuinely asking. I don't know. That could be like common business practice. I don't know what any of that means that you just said, other than
fund a loan. I know it confused me a little bit. Fund a loan to the UH Athletics Department to cover the loan will cover operating expenses during a transitional period for athletics that will be repaid over an 11-year term.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a lot of times when athletic departments have to borrow from the school. That's seen as not a good thing, but I don't like some of that. It's all the framing, and it's all here you hear it from, right? I mean, does this mean that they're not going to build a new dorm?
Well, we don't need to guess too long.
Yeah, so that's all. Like that's what. So you can say one thing, that okay, well that's bad, but $10 million paid out over 11 years. Back, it doesn't really seem that bad to me. I don't know, in the grand scheme of money.
In other words, there's money available to cover a loan that they will use that money that they'll pay back to help with the transition of trying to get bigger, better, faster, and stronger.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much to Liam Rooney. Coming up, Stuart Mandel, theathletic.com, on just many things college football. Also today, Rob Mosley covers Oregon for GoDucks.com. He'll join us today at 4:25. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, I'm David Smoke. Jack McKenzie runs the mothership. Emery Winter is here. The magical editing fingers for tonight's 365 Sports Tonight. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. And right now, opportunities for you to be a member of the Baylor Club. Mike Mosel, the general manager. There are all sorts of, I guess you could say, perks available. Baylor's opening game around the corner on August the 31st. You can go inside McLean Stadium, get to the Baylor Club, and ask for more information and details. And there's many perks that come with that, including, of course, the dining, including what you can do on game day and the opportunities and what available for you on game day. Here's also something else. The culinary experience, the food, diverse menu crafted by award-winning chefs promises an unforgettable and also dining experience for every palate. Become part of the vibrant Baylor community, the Baylor Club, by going to McLean Stadium. You go online, baylorclub.edu, inside that umbrella under Baylor, but attached from them, but a part of McLean Stadium. The Baylor Club. Join today. Exclusive benefits, including access to premium dining, social events, and networking opportunities.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I cracked up. I saw this Stuart Mandel responding to Chris Vanini of theathletic.com, ranking all 134 FBS college teams from Ohio State to Kennesaw State. And Stewart said, always well-received and non-controversial. That, of course, very tongue-in-cheek. Stewart, thank you for your time. What's it like just to finally, with all that goes on in college athletics, to have a week where there are games this weekend?
It's awesome. It's can't come soon enough. As much as I like writing these season preview stories, at some point, you're like, I wish we had actual games to write about instead of all these on-paper predictions that we know half of them will. I'll end up looking like an idiot for.
Stuart, as you know, both the polls are out. Did anything that the majority voted in these kind of stick out to you, or you think was off a little bit?
Well, I wouldn't say there's anything completely surprising. One thing that I kind of noticed is, okay, Oregon is number 3 in both the AP and coaches polls. And that seems a little bit like, are we getting a little bit ahead of ourselves on Oregon? Remember, they had a great season, but the 2 games against Washington, their defense didn't play great. But then it's like, well, who would you put there instead that you wouldn't have the same questions about? It just really illustrated to me that we have 2, on paper, loaded teams in Georgia and Ohio State. And then I think there's a drop-off where everybody else has questions, including number 5 Alabama, who lost the greatest coach in history.
Stuart, as far as this weekend goes, with Florida State starting off in the top 10, we know what happened a few months back, and it's a bit of a different-looking team. Georgia Tech, a team that comes in with a lot of people high on what they could potentially do if they can reach their ceiling. What do you think about the Noles coming off of the fiasco at the end of last year and just the state of the ACC as these two teams kick off the conference?
The interesting thing is Georgia Tech actually has more continuity. Same quarterback, same star running back, 4 or 5 offensive linemen. Now, they weren't nearly as good as Florida State last year, but are they capable of pulling a surprise? I think so. Florida State has basically changed over, almost all the key guys from last year are off to the NFL. New quarterback, although we've certainly seen a lot of DJ. So they're a bit of a wild card. They're certainly more talented than Georgia Tech, I believe. And I do think, DJ has never lived up to the 5-star billing from high school, but he got a lot better at Oregon State last year, and he's played a lot of college football. So I kind of expect to see an up and down performance in that first game, but Florida State should win. I just don't think I don't think an upset is out of the possibility.
It's interesting you say the continuity because Haynes King is back. Georgia Tech, a pretty good team with Coach Pry, and a little bit of momentum too, and who knows how that might happen. Especially when a long road trip too, on your way to Ireland. When you look at the Power 4 conferences, the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, and also the Big 12, which of them, in your opinion, is the most intriguing after so much movement?
I got to say the SEC, and I think that the SEC, while it's always considered the best conference, has a chance to be particularly loaded this year because of the quarterbacks that are coming back. Carson Beck is, projected to be the number 1 quarterback in the draft. Jalen Milroe is obviously a proven guy. Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Quinn Ewers at Texas. And then, the SEC teams often get criticized for not playing a strong enough schedule, but nobody's going to say that about Georgia this year. They're playing 3 preseason top 10 teams all on the road, plus Clemson in the opener at a neutral site. You don't usually see Alabama go to play a team like at Wisconsin. They have Georgia. I just think the effect of realignment, the effect of Texas and Oklahoma joining what was already an extremely strong conference, you're just going to see so many blockbuster games in that league on a week-in, week-out basis.
Stuart Mandel, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports.
Stuart, do you think that any of the offseason, conference intrigue type things will spill into this regular season, or do you think we're due for some downtime before it kicks back up again, particularly Florida State and Clemson and the ACC and their ongoing court mediation and battles?
Yeah, I think that depends on what happens in the courts. And what's crazy is there are 4 different lawsuits that work here because, those schools filed lawsuits against the ACC and the ACC turned around and filed lawsuits against them. But, a key date came and went last week. August 15th was the deadline if they were going to choose to try to withdraw by in time for next season, next school year. So they didn't do that. So right now it's just kind of held up in the courts. You never say never about other conference movement, but it does feel like, first the schools all changed around, and then those conferences did their new TV deals. And so in theory, there shouldn't be more movement until those TV deals come up again in 6 or 7 years.
Stuart, are you as I don't know. I feel like there's been a different tone when talking about Texas making this move, and I understand that it's based on what we've seen lately versus Oklahoma making this move to the SEC. There seems to be a lot more people sure of Texas' success versus OU's, even though historically OU is a more successful program. Do you think it'll be a tougher fit for the Sooners, at least early on, or do you think that's being overblown a little bit?
I think we all have short-term memory, and obviously Texas made the playoff last year and came down to the last play against Washington. So, of course, people are high on them, going into this year, whereas Oklahoma took a bit of a step back 2 years ago. They were definitely better last year than the year before, but they haven't been in the playoff in, 3 or 4 years now. So I get it, but what I would say is be careful with Texas. Quinn Ewers is great. His receivers are great. They've lost 2 of their top running backs for the season in preseason. They're down to 3 scholarship running backs before the season even starts. And you're going to play a full, SEC grind. Coaches I've talked to wonder how they're going to replace those two first and second round defensive tackles. And, it's just going to be a much more difficult schedule than they played last year, starting with week 2 at Michigan, at the defending national champs. So I don't think it's easy for either Texas or Oklahoma. I do think Texas is probably more proven in terms of the personnel they have, but I wouldn't assume that one is, immediately comes in and contends for the SEC title and that Oklahoma is far from it.
You did the predictions on the SEC, and you have 5 teams at 10-2 or better. 11-1 Georgia, 4-way tie at 6-2 with Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee behind 7-1 Georgia. If the standings end up that way, which of those teams, how many of those teams will be a part of the 12-team college football playoff?
Okay, I'm glad. I thought where you were going with that was which of the 4, 6, and 2 teams would play in the SEC title game. And I don't have the foggiest idea.
Yeah.
In part because they haven't actually published their tiebreaker yet. I would think any 10-2 team from the SEC is going to make the playoff. Though we don't know yet how the committee is going to handle. Everybody says, okay, these 2 have separated themselves from the Big 12 and ACC, but when push comes to shove, if there's a 11-2 Big 12 team that lost in the league title game and a 10-2 SEC team that didn't play in theirs, which way would they go? Mm-hmm. And obviously, that's going to depend on schedules and how many top 25 teams you beat and whatnot. But I think the general expectation is that you play in the SEC or Big 10, you win 10 games, there's going to be room for you in the 12-team playoff. If anything, we will see how often a 9-win team gets in. LSU last year was 9-3 and had a terrible defense, and based on the rankings, would have made the playoff. So there's definitely going to be room some years for that.
Stuart, which team do you see likely? You mentioned Texas, being careful with them. Which team do you see being a dangerous disappointment this year?
Dangerous disappointment. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned that we're too far ahead on Oregon. I do think, obviously, offensively and skill positions, they're great. I think there's the perception of how talented they are in defense is gotten a little bit ahead of where they actually are. There are good players, but they're not brimming with elite first-round type defensive players. And last year, Washington really took advantage of that in their 2 meetings. Now, it's not like the Big Ten is a murderer's row this year. But for whatever reason, Oregon has come to be viewed as in a different category than, they've been viewed as more closer to Ohio State than to Penn State and Michigan. And I don't know if we're there yet. They do have a decent schedule in terms of what they drew in the Big Ten this year, but we just don't know. We've never, the people who are just assuming they'll go in and be great, we don't know. We've never seen a situation like this where Oregon's going to, in November, they're going to play at Michigan and at Wisconsin. These are not easy trips, and they're going to make 2 of them. We've never seen a team have to do that before this whole super conference era. So we should keep an eye on that, I think.
Stuart, what is your opinion on the Big 12 as a league entering this season? Clearly there's the 2 big ones that everybody always talks about that gets the most shine, and it has the biggest matchups now because of realignment. But the Big 12 stands to benefit the Arizona, Utah additions alone. It's been so much change, so much turnover, but it seems like a league that's got a little bit of momentum and a little bit of the fact that the unknown is sort of exciting. Where do you see the Big 12 as far as interest level this season?
I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a very exciting race because there's so many teams. I've heard people say 6, 7, 8 teams they could see winning the conference. Utah's the favorite, but I don't think anybody thinks they're, head and shoulders above anybody else in that top pack. Kansas State will definitely be in the mix, I think. Kansas, Arizona, as you mentioned. Oklahoma State was in the title game last year, and I feel like people have already forgotten that. So just right on down the list. Now, the problem is I don't see a national championship contender in that group. And as we get into the playoff era, I think conferences will probably be judged by, they're all going to get their champion in, but how far does that team go once they're in there? But in terms of regular season race, I would be surprised if I would assume we'll get down to the end of the season and that race is still very much up for grabs.
How long did it take for you to come up with that press conference of the primer for college football season with all that's changed?
Not that long. My editor asked me to do a idiot's guide to all the changes in college football this year. And I don't know, for some reason I thought of that format of a press conference full of reporters, if you will, who have been asleep for the last 5 years. But I will say it was very fun to write, and kind of, I was kind of realizing in the moment, because look, I cover the sport. I've known about all these developments, but seeing them all in one place, the conference changes, the playoff format, the coaching, the fact that Nick Saban is no longer Alabama's coach, and that's like the fourth biggest change this season. It's pretty staggering how much the sport has changed just in the span of a couple of years.
Stuart, should a program, let's use Michigan as an example. They win the national title, run the table 15-0. Harbaugh has a show cause, and whatever else still comes out of the investigation. I'm not a fan of redacting wins or things like that. How do you feel like that should be handled?
I do think like they probably will vacate wins because that's just a standard NCAA penalty. But I don't know that really changes anything. I mean, there's been lots of great teams over the years that had to vacate wins and you don't even know about it or you don't even remember it. But really, I think the legacy of that thing will be, do they get a postseason ban or not? Because that's really the only punishment the NCAA has at its disposal that's truly consequential. They might fine the school. Michigan can afford whatever fine. They gave Harbaugh the show cause. He's never coming back to college as it is. It's, if Michigan is banned from next year's playoff because of the postseason ban, that would really hit them, where it hurts. And I do think that even though you can debate how serious or not serious the Connor Stallions scheme was, it's the NCAA is clearly coming down hard on it because of Harbaugh, because of how much he lied to them in the interview about the other thing, being a repeat offender. Even Sharon Moore is now a repeat offender. I do think that they're going to try to punish them. It's just, what can they do that actually that's actually meaningful?
When it comes to lying them about the other thing, and a lot has been made of that, did he do that just because he thought it was so stupid? Or, I mean, and again, it doesn't really, did you just know it didn't matter? It seems weird to me to lie about something to the NCAA now, given that the thing they can punish you for more is the lying and less about the rule you actually broke.
Well, what I always say about Jim Harbaugh is he's a weird guy. He's very different than most people. And so trying to get in his head and guess motivation is futile because his head works differently than everybody else's. But it seems to me he just didn't have much respect for the NCAA. We are definitely in a different era. People used to fear the NCAA. It was, if the NCAA is investigating you, you need to, do everything you possibly can, beg for mercy. And that's just not the way schools handle it now, unless they want to get their coach fired. Tennessee was happy to offer up Jeremy Pruitt to the NCAA. But if it's somebody you actually want to keep or respect or value, people don't cooperate that much with the NCAA anymore. But the thing with him is you don't often see a transcript of an interview like that where he just flat out got caught, openly lying about those meetings with the recruits. And like you said, I think in the NCAA's eyes, that's more troubling than the things themselves.
Stuart, it's been unbelievable the last 3 to 4 years of what we've seen in college football. Appreciate your time. I'm sure there's more to come, but man, not sure it could ever top what we've seen across the board, as you mentioned, and also in your story. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stuart Mandel, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. His Big 12 predictions, by the way. He did all the Power 4 schools or conferences. Utah 8-1, K-State 7-2. Kansas State, Kansas, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, West Virginia 6-3. UCF 5-4. And then after that, TCU and Tech 4-5. Arizona State, Baylor, Colorado 3-6, 2-7. BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston at 1-8. The teams that don't make a bowl game: Arizona State, Baylor, Colorado, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, which is pretty much the same 6 across the board that most of us have agreed on.
Yeah, I think Baylor and Colorado are the wild cards there as far as bowl eligibility goes, that they could fall on either side of that line. I don't think it would surprise anybody. I think it would surprise you if Houston, Cincinnati, BYU made a bowl game. I think just in general, I think that's fair to say. Everybody else, I think you'd expect them to be in a bowl game of some sort. But, we're at that point now where glad we got Stuart Mandel on, but, man, we need to see some damn games because we truly are at the point where it's like we've talked so much about this that, like, we just need to see it now. You know what I mean? Because the Big 12 is so interesting, and you mentioned Tech and TCU there at the bottom. They could damn well be in the top 5, like for all we know. I know they've got their holes and everything, but everybody's got the same layout at this point. We've all got the same 6 teams at the top tier. We've all got the same 5 teams in the middle tier, and we've all got pretty much the same 4 or 5 teams in that bottom tier. Now, you go over thousands of people, there's going to be a little difference here and there, but I think for the most part, it's pretty well established. There's 6, 7 teams that could be in that championship game at the end of the year. So, I'm just so excited to see what this actual mess looks like on the other side of it, and how did Colorado surprise people? Who did surprise people if it's not them? Who is getting a lot of credit right now and is actually nowhere near as good as we're propping them up to be for the last several months? Is it Kansas? Is it I don't know, Utah? I can't wait. I am so thrilled that we're here.
The history of the conference shows that will happen.
Right. And everybody
one goes up and one goes down.
Is pretty much, collectively going with Kansas State and Utah. And I sat there last night because we had this question on the website, and I'm trying to go a different direction here and do something, but you read every piece of information and it says Kansas State and Utah should be the 2 teams in this championship game. Now, that doesn't factor in injuries and human error and all those things, which is why I'm so excited to get to what are those things going to be that prevents it from being K-State, Utah, or is it what we thought? And it's K-State, Utah because they were clearly the 2 best teams. I'm so excited because this is uncharted territory for every league in America. Everybody's going through a change of some sort, addition or subtraction of teams, and or both. And, it's going to be wild.
How often in the SEC, prior to even Texas and Oklahoma joining for this year, how often and Garrett's not here today, he's off for the next couple of days, Jack again running the mothership, how often did teams at the upper echelon of the SEC drop? An Alabama, a Georgia, LSU. How many times did they Tennessee kind of messed around for a little bit, but how many of them would drop into the second tier of the conference?
Only for a second. It wasn't, it happens to a lot of other programs, but Georgia, Bama, LSU, Georgia, and look, they're at their pinnacle right now under Kirby Smart, but people forget that Mark Richt had them pretty much in the championship game about every year, and then he just couldn't get over the hump. Yeah. And then they brought in Kirby Smart and took him there.
How often?
Not long. I mean, every couple of years, maybe somebody gets a quarterback hurt and they go 7-5, but the upper echelon of that league, which is, now Florida is probably the last one. Florida was the upper echelon of the league, and the minute Urban Meyer left, they've been kind of aimlessly wandering.
Yeah, they've been sinking, yeah. Craig, you think of anything like that when the SEC, it seemed like the top clump remains the top clump. That was not always the case in the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they've all pretty much stayed competitive. Florida is an example of somebody who hasn't, but yeah, beyond that, I don't know that there's anybody that's a great example of that. I'm just wondering where are you going with that?
That the Big 12 has always been in flux.
Yeah.
It's always been in flux. And that's
Oklahoma,
what I think makes it so much fun.
Oklahoma was the most consistent up until the past couple of years where they weren't in the conference championship game, but prior to that, they were the consistent champion, and they were consistently playing for the championship. And it was a rotation of schools that were competing against them, whether it was Iowa State or it was TCU or it was Texas or it was Baylor on more than one occasion, Oklahoma State as well. But, yeah, that was kind of a revolving door of teams that tried to jump up and knock them off that perch. But they had a good little run that was as consistent as this league has seen. But, again, that stopped a couple of years ago. And so it's, I guess kind of going alongside with the latest couple of rounds of realignment. anyone's guess as to kind of how the Big 12 was going to play out. So, yeah, there's not, especially with now Oklahoma out of the picture, there's no one that comes close to being like the picture of consistency in this league. Even Texas wasn't the picture of consistency in this league. It was really just OU there for a good stretch.
Oklahoma State maybe would be next as far as consistency.
And being good, but I'm more or less meaning like playing for the championship. They've been kind of in and out, but played for it 2 times in the last 3 years or 4 years, and that's
two of the last
good.
3.
Or 2 of the last. I was just trying to think of where we were years wise here. So 2 of the last 3 they played for it. So they're right there in the mix to, I guess, have been as consistent as anybody, but just not at a high level where, like what you're saying, they're winning those games and they're perched at the top of the conference.
Bracket Cat, anyone know the last time the 2 favorites actually ended up together in the Big 12 championship game? I bet it's been since maybe OU Texas in 2017 or 18, the year OU lost in the in the conference game, and then Texas won the Big 12 title with Kyler Murray.
Well, everybody has fun at the Big 12 voters' expense. They picked Texas to win it last year. And everybody's just like, oh, they don't ever get it right, Neil Brown. And it's like, well, they picked the winner last year, so that was actually right. Now, I know the running joke's like, well, you pick Texas every year, but that's not true either. That's not the way that it was. Oklahoma was the one that got picked more often than not. So, I don't know as far as picking both teams. It's certainly, I think it was 50% at best last year, because I'm trying to think of who would have been the other team opposite Texas in the preseason poll. I don't remember.
It would not have been TCU.
It wasn't TCU, so it was Oklahoma State.
What I'm saying is that in the preseason poll, right, it would not have been TCU coming off even the great year because they weren't expected to be that good the next year. I'm not sure who. I bet it was Oklahoma State. Maybe it was.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying I don't remember who it was.
I can tell you
I don't think people pick Texas and Oklahoma State, though, is what my point is. So, I think we got 50% at best. I don't know about, before that, nobody was picking Baylor, Oklahoma State for the Big 12 champ. Or before that, Kansas State and who was it? TCU. Nobody was picking that.
No.
So,
I know that until the last couple of years after the announcement of them going to the SEC, every year I had a vote, Oklahoma was one of my teams. Every year. Like every year I had a vote in the Big 12 preseason poll before the announcement. And maybe even that year, Oklahoma was one of my teams in the conference title game.
I keep emails forever on everything, and I'm going to go back and find what the preseason poll was for 2023 and maybe even 2022. When we come back? Huh?
Hoarder.
I am. There's a reason for it. Rob Mosley covers Oregon. Of course, they're getting a lot of love. In fact, Stuart Mandel brought up maybe are they getting too much? I don't know. They got Dylan Gabriel and company, Dan Lanning. They got a lot of momentum. And Rob Mosley joins us next. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. They have another auction coming up around the corner. Yep, yet another live auction will be on August the 28th and 29th, and this one will be about the steaks. There were steaks available in their in the last live auction, but this one comes up. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. They'll pop up a note from BidOnBeef.com, and they will also then have all of what is going to be available, and they are going to highlight, as they should, oh my Lord, all of the steaks, from ribeyes to sirloin to New York strip, filet, and more. They are amazing. And TexasBeefHouse.com, the Duvall family, they are also going to be, I can make the announcement now, that we will be giving away $100 gift cards to the Pick'em winners at the end of each week. But one catch this year, you must be a subscriber to be a part of the Pick'em contest. That's per who bought the $1,500 in gift certificates, and a viewer himself in Kim who's so good about giving back to what we do too. So we will have that, more details. We'll work with Christian McCollum about our Pick'em, and TexasBeefHouse.com. $100 gift cards to the weekly winner. And don't forget, their next live auction is just a little bit away, August the 28th and also the 29th. I think I said the 28th and 29th. August the, where is it at? 28th. Yeah, 28th and 29th at TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Genco, our goal is to build long-lasting relationships while providing complete financial solutions for each step of life's journey. Our members enjoy fewer fees, lower rates on loans of all types, and higher yields on a wide variety of savings options. That's just a small part of the credit union difference. Visit Genco online, on Facebook, or come by one of our 5 locations today. Apply online for membership. Genco FCU, NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Rob Mosley, GoDucks.com. Oregon, of course, number 3 in both of the preseason polls, the coaches poll and also the Associated Press poll. And Dan Lanning, the momentum. Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback. And Rob Mosley joins us on 365 Sports. Rob, thank you very much. This is not like to try to be flippant, but is Oregon getting a little bit more love than even you expected entering the year?
Let me see. That's a fair question because obviously there's a unanimity, I think, to people thinking this is, a top 5 team in the country, things like that. But I don't know. So in some sense, it's relatively uncharted territory for this program. On the other hand, it's not the first time this program's been preseason number 3. I think with the momentum that Dan Lanning's had the last few years, the program's had the last couple decades, frankly. I think the move to the Big Ten has a lot more attention on this program than in some other preseasons, and so that's impacted things as well, that maybe some folks are taking this program more seriously than they have in the past. And, paying more respect, I think by the nature of the lack of respect the Pac-12 got, that sometimes was reflected, unfortunately, in some preseason rankings and things like that. And that's obviously out the door. So I don't know. That's a complicated question. Certainly, I don't want to say it's more than I expected, because I think we all knew what was coming back. And then with the additions through the portal, that this has the chance to be a pretty special group.
Rob, but who from last year's team is going to be the toughest to replace?
Who from last year's team is going to be the toughest to replace? I mean, for all that Dillon Gabriel has done, I think you start with when you lose a Heisman Trophy finalist and the guy who with a couple weeks left in the regular season looked like he might have been the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at one point. Replacing Bo Nix is a tall task. Now, Dillon Gabriel's resume obviously speaks for itself, and he's played a lot of football, and so I think there's a lot of reason to be confident that position is going to be filled there. But when you lose a player the caliber of Bo Nix, you're probably going to feel that. Bucky Irving was a great player. Jackson Powers Johnson, might be kind of the sneaky answer when you have the Remington Trophy winner at center, and then you got potentially a young guy in a Ponchalaulu or somebody else on the roster that has to step into those shoes. Those are big shoes to fill. So, but the transfer portal just impacts so much anymore. I mean, Kyrie Jackson, may he rest in peace, was a great corner, and you look at a guy like him and say, yeah, this team's gonna miss him. But then you go into the portal and get a Jabbar Muhammad from Washington, take a guy from your rival and plug him into the defense. It's certainly a different task these days to replace big time losses than it used to be.
You mentioned Jabbar Muhammad there. The Ducks have a good number of Texans on their roster. I was just looking through there. One of those, Kobe Savage, a young man who we've talked to a few different times, just covering the Big 12. What's the early return on the transfer from K-State and just kind of where he fits in to the Ducks puzzle?
Yeah, I think, I've been comparing him a lot to, again, you talk about, the way the portal has changed the game. There were a couple of guys the last couple of years, Bennett Williams and then Evan Williams, two brothers who transferred in and were short-term guys here because they played elsewhere, but had a big impact defensively from the safety position. And Kobe Savage, to me, kind of looks like the third Williams brother almost. I'm not sure if a bunch of folks are going to get that reference, but Oregon fans certainly would. But just a guy who is not afraid to stick his nose into it at the line of scrimmage, but that also can go back and make a play on a ball. He's a guy who really looks like a plug-and-play guy on the back end of this defense. And, again, when you look at, Christian Gonzalez at corner a couple years ago and then Kyrie Jackson, the Williams brothers, and what this secondary is looking to do this year with Jabbar Muhammad and Kobe Savage and Brandon Johnson. Tyson Johnson came in here last year. He's back this year, but another portal guy. This staff has had a lot of success going into the portal, getting guys for the secondary, plugging them right in, and not missing a beat.
What is it like covering Dan Lanning? He has the intensity. He's obviously young, aggressive, fearless, not afraid to say what he wants to say. But what's it like covering him?
Well, I mean, it's somebody who, I'm different than a media member. It's somebody who works in Oregon athletics and so covers him, in air quotes, but is also kind of, all of our fortunes are kind of hitched to the success of the football program. It's pretty fun to have a guy like that who seems just like the perfect guy for this moment in college football. I think you look at, just a few years back what the environment looked like, and then all the changes we've gone through with realignment, with the portal, with NIL, and that becoming a factor in all that. Having a young, smart, dynamic, energetic head coach to kind of ride this wave that we're all on right now in this environment, I think is invaluable. And I think for a fair amount of folks, certainly not the diehards that are in the weeds, but for a fair amount of folks, when Oregon hired Dan Lanning, there was probably a little bit of, wait, who's this guy? I need to brush up on his resume and figure out who he is, what he's about, where he's from. And maybe even some question marks that, was he ready for a job like this? But I think you can say unequivocally at this point that he was the perfect man for that moment. And again, the momentum just builds and builds and builds to getting back to your first question. Oregon's in a position now as one of the preseason favorites across the country. And it's really not a big shock based on the momentum this program has had.
Which transfer are you most excited to see?
Well, obviously a quarterback is just critical to any football team's success at any level. So, I'm excited to watch Dillon Gabriel. I haven't watched him a ton. I'm so in the weeds on a college football Saturday watching Oregon and diagnosing Oregon that I don't watch a ton. So I haven't seen him play a ton, frankly. And I'm excited to see him and see what he's all about. And obviously I know what his numbers are, know what his bio is. So I'm excited to see that kind of production in action. And again, your fortunes are just tied so much to your quarterback. There's going to be a lot on that person's shoulders. And so, interested to see in a couple weeks once he takes the field what this offense looks like with him running it, and excited to see kind of how prolific it can be. Is it going to look a little different than what Will Stein did when he had Bo Nix as his quarterback last year? Or is it going to look largely the same? Interested to find that out as well.
They have a pretty good wide receiver room. I think it's just safe to say, starting off there with Tez Johnson. How does Evan Stewart fit in, do you think? What have been kind of the early returns just ever since he's arrived?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two of them, you're talking about two of the most dynamic players in the country at that position. I mean, to me, they profile really similarly. Not the most biggest guys in terms of stature, but both just incredibly explosive guys who are close to top speed within only a couple of strides. So they can create a ton of separation that way, whether it's in short space or going deep down the field. So, you get the ball in their hands and look out. And then you complement them with some bigger bodies. Trayshawn Holden's a guy who I think has really developed quite a bit in terms of consistency over last year. He's a big frame, a guy who profiles different. Kyler Casper's a guy I think who's had a really exciting preseason camp and kind of profiles different than those other guys. And the tight end room with Terrence Ferguson and Patrick Herbert, Justin's little brother. Kenyon Sadiq's a young guy who's been making a lot of noise this preseason. So a lot of bigger bodies, too, to complement those two guys in Johnson and Stewart, who are just incredibly explosive.
I know he had a few snaps last year. Austin Novosad, the quarterback out of Dripping Springs, who once was committed to Baylor for a long, long time and then changed his mind on the eve of signing day. And now he has Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore ahead of him. Is he just stuck on that depth chart?
Particularly in the spring, that was not the case. I think to Dylan Gabriel's credit and Dante Moore as well, kind of like Bo Nix a couple years ago. They didn't come in here and just, get handed anything or assume they should. There really was a really equal distribution of snaps. And there were days I would walk off the practice field in the spring and say, man, Novosad might have looked like the best guy today out of all those guys. Those other two are obviously learning a new system at that point, but Austin really progressed from last year to this year as well, too. Now, as we get closer to the season, there's just no substitute for experience. And obviously Dylan Gabriel has a ton of experience, and I feel like that's showing up as we get closer to the first game. And Dante Moore started a bunch for UCLA last year, and, that experience is beneficial as well. So I think that certainly helps those guys. And Austin, just by the nature of his youth, just doesn't have the same experience those guys do. But he definitely has progressed a ton, noticeably, over last year. And, if you stay on that trajectory, big things are ahead from him. Obviously everybody around here hopes Dylan Gabriel stays healthy and is able to play the whole year. And he's the guy for that spot this year. But going forward, I think Novosad's a guy who, again, if he stays on the trajectory he's on, has a bright future for sure.
Are you used to seeing the Big Ten logo plastered everywhere that the Pac-12 logo would go? And I know that's still very bittersweet for a lot of people who have covered Oregon for a long time, the death of the Pac. But is that still sort of surreal? And how much excitement would you say there is amongst the Duck faithful for this journey into the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think, June, July, kind of basically once the 23-24 academic year ended and you started to look ahead to 24-25, there was that middle period kind of in the middle of the summer, late June, early July when, logos started to change. You started to, anticipate August 2nd and kind of formulate plans for what that day was going to look like and, officially becoming members of a new conference. And so that's when reality set in. Now it's like, our soccer team has already played 2 games as members of the Big Ten. Football's openers coming up, volleyball's openers coming up. Our cross country team is working out already. It's like now it's like you're already in it and it just feels like normal. You don't really have a chance to step back and think big picture like that. I would assume maybe, watching the first game in Austin Stadium in a couple weeks with those logos on the field as they are now already. But, seeing it on game day might feel a little different. But no, I think there's just so much excitement. Again, referring again to, as I was speaking earlier, how dynamic the environment has been in college athletics the last few years. You want, there's a couple of conferences I think you want to be in right now, and Oregon ended up in one of them. And so for all the hard feelings from a lot of folks involved, including, some Oregon fans who didn't like seeing the demise of the Pac-12, but change is hard, but also change is inevitable in life. And I think everybody around here also feels like, things worked out as well as they possibly could have for this athletics department.
Great stuff, Rob. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being available to us. Enjoy. I know you will. We'll be back in touch. Oregon in the Big 12 is from GoDucks.com with us on 365 Sports. I'm glad you brought that up, Craig, because
you mean in the Big Ten.
The Big Ten. I'm glad you brought that up because I was searching for a depth chart. And I went to Our Lads. And, of course, I went to Our Lads and I went right past the Big Ten looking for Oregon. And I couldn't find them. Like, I know they're a part of the Big Ten now, but it was just kind of still, okay, wait a minute. I gotta figure out where they are. And, of course, it was right there, right in front of me.
You didn't catch that when you hit the Pac-12 button and the drop-down menu had 2 teams on it?
Yeah, I saw that
Didn't
too.
kick in the memory of, that's right.
I saw that
you
too.
You just hit refresh a bunch of times going, hey, I must not.
Wait, 1, 2, 2.
So is and Tanner Mordecai played at Oklahoma somewhat, but he always got knocked back down a notch with all the transfers that came in. Is Austin Novosad going to be that at Oregon? And that's not to take a shot at him. Gabriel, Nix last year, before that, he's only been there for, a year. And then what they might have with Dante Moore. You're pretty good, highly recruited, and yet you keep on having somebody else like who's just better because they're very talented.
Well, I mean, the deal is like we were talking about with Baylor earlier, somebody's got to be a starter and somebody's got to be the backup. Like Ty Thompson was a highly heralded recruit. He's at, Tulane now?
Yep.
So I don't know. To answer your question, who's available in the quarterback market next year? Who's in the portal? Because that's what Dan Lanning will take a look at before, just handing the keys to Austin Novosad because he's –
Well, Dante Moore's just a sophomore, so they got him too, right?
Right. So there's options that they, that's a question that we can save for about another 6 months, I think, because I don't think there's any clarity that's going to come outside of, knock on wood, Dylan Gabriel got hurt. And Novosad's just the guy on the depth chart that turns out to be the guy, and then he goes and lights it up, and then you're like, okay, well, damn, Oregon's got their quarterback of the future. Outside of that happening, which I hope doesn't happen because I don't want to see Dylan Gabriel get hurt. I would like to see him have a healthy last year.
Yep.
Then there's no way to answer that question right now. But it's entirely possible that, he gets lost on the depth chart, just like hundreds of other players each year get lost on the depth chart. And lots of them are former 4-star rated players. I mean, we just talked about a guy earlier in Jaden Rashada, who's on his 3rd team now at this point, a former 5-star quarterback. And there's various other examples of Malachi Nelson.
Yep.
I mean, he goes to Boise. Is he guaranteed? No. So, I don't know what the future holds for Austin Novosad, but sounds like he's doing pretty okay. It's just a matter of you're not Dylan Gabriel and you weren't Bo Nix. So, let's see how this year plays out.
All right. I have all the way back to 2018. Who was favored in the media poll between 1 and 2 in the Big 12 media poll in football, and who actually played in the game? I got that. I got evidence.
All right, let's do that next then.
And now I can delete that file.
Yeah,
I have that evidence.
Let's do that next. And I think I just based on one that I saw, there is a lot of this team was good last year. Let's vote them in the next year. There's a bad habit of that.
There's
I feel
an
like in the
example
Big
of that,
12,
like 2 or 3 years in a row. We'll do that. We'll come back with that. And around the corner, we still have Essen Kassem, who covered Florida State, but now is a national writer for USA Today on college football. Paul's Top 5 is an hour from now, and this is 365 Sports. And this is about Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Ted Teague sent out a text message about how proud he is about the sales and service team. Recently voted number 1 used car dealer, number 1 service repair in the city of Waco. Also, the Community Heart of Texas, they do this Choice Readers Awards. I've never been a part of that, but I do know that businesses, when they're named and honored, they should be proud of that. How about this? 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4XE with $12,000 off MSRP. The Jeep Grand Cherokee, the most decorated SUV in history, and now comes in a hybrid, which will run on electric mode and also, if you want gas, you get to make your choice. See if you qualify for the extra federal tax benefits, also to reduce the price even more. Go by Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Ted Teague, the general manager and CEO. Small, mid-sized SUVs to large-sized Suburbans are available. Wagoneers, they are amazing. You sure also, if you can, get a chance to look at one and also drive it around. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
All right, Emery Winter. Just always so quiet and just such a pro. Just always working on what else we can do. And obviously putting together 365 Sports tonight, which is at 10:30 on the local CW channel. Just inform me, and I informed everybody else. Is that right, Emery? We went over 60,000. 60,000. I see 59.9 right now, but I have not refreshed my page.
And it may not. Like some of them, like there's a little clearinghouse thing.
There you go.
And then Emery's got the back page so we can see in real time. So
it says 60K now. I just refreshed my page. I'm always nervous to do that. It might kick me off so I can see the degenerates in the chat room.
Here's what I'd like to figure out. It took us forever to get to 50. And then once we got to 50, it's like YouTube was like, okay, you've earned, we'll stop making you earn it so hard. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they were holding us back.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what you attribute that to. I do think that people see certain marks, like numbers wise, and like when you see 50 as opposed to like 36, there's just a difference in your head of like, oh, 50 is better. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
the 50th anniversary of anything or 50, it does look different.
You see 50,000, you're like, yeah, I'll subscribe to that. Whereas maybe sub 50, you're more like, I don't know, like I'll revisit it. You know what I mean? Like, but you see 50 plus that, you're like, well, there must be something to this. And so, that's awesome. We've hardly mentioned the subscribe thing in the last month. We did it on the way to 50, and then
Paul got drunk in the studio.
That's 10,000 in the last 6 weeks or so, something like that.
I would say so.
By the way, I do have a little bit of a controversy on the whole keg stand thing. We might have to redo it.
Where somebody is debating?
There's not like anybody cheating or anything like that, but I don't think it was done properly. This is to Paul's credit. my brother-in-law Daniel brought this up, and at the time, like, I wasn't involved in the planning at all, nor were you. Like, Paul got the keg and everybody, but Paul was having to hold the nozzle himself, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
He shouldn't have had to have done that. Somebody else should have been holding the nozzle, because that way you're trying to hold yourself up, and you're also, so you're only using one arm, and I think you're worried about everybody else trying to hold you up as well.
Well, I mean, I'm a fat dude. So
I thought Garrett and Jack did a hell of a job.
No, they did, but I think you were worried about it. You were clearly worried about it. So you're already, like, you got one arm holding you up.
Don't give Garrett any credit. It was me and Emery.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it wasn't even Garrett, who's the biggest dude in the whole place. I think
I remember
Daniel
that
brought
so well.
Daniel brought that up, and I was like, you know what? Damn, you're right, because that would have helped hold you up, would have been your other arm, whereas you were trying to do the nozzle, and somebody else should have been doing the nozzle.
I have to do it again.
I agree.
Look, still here.
You don't.
No,
but y'all see where I'm coming from on this?
Yeah, no.
I think you maybe get a couple more seconds.
No matter what Miss Amanda thinks, you're doing it again.
Okay, so hopefully she's not watching right now, because
I'll know, because
here's the
she'll
thing.
text you.
We won't tell her.
Yeah.
We're not
When's
gonna.
the next time she might be incognito somewhere, like with her?
Oh, I don't like. Again, I don't know the exact dates, but it's within 7 weeks from now.
Oh, okay. Keg stand. Everyone else agrees. We'll do it again.
I think we need to see, and that way it gives Paul a chance at redemption and see if he's really just 5-second man
It
or
was really bad.
7.5.
7.5.
7.5.
And I was sitting there thinking the day before, the week leading up to it, would be 30 seconds. And
Hell no.
No. All right,
Not even 18-year-old Paul was doing 30 seconds on the keg stand.
No.
I'm telling you right now, that wasn't happening.
I think I could probably lay claim
30
to
seconds is a long
I
time,
could probably
brother.
lay claim to a 20.
Okay,
A
well, fair
solid 20,
enough. But
yeah.
I think even like Frank the Tank's getting dizzy at 30 seconds on the
we
keg
demand
stand.
a recount, keg stand from
So-
everybody. Do it.
But
Okay.
I mean,
All right,
is
let's
there
get to
agreement
this-
here?
Yeah, I
there's
think we'll do
a
it again.
level of just the
We're doing
way
it
it was
again.
set up that you shouldn't have to be pumping it, or you shouldn't have to be holding the nozzle yourself while also trying to hold yourself
We
up.
also have a beer distribution company, and thanks to Michelob Ultra, Busch Light, and Bud Light, that's like less than 300 or 400
Also,
yards from us.
and
Benny Keith will have them bring the keg.
Southern Roots, thank you for the beer.
Yes.
That's fantastic. But I will tell you, it's heavier than all of those things.
Yeah.
Caloric intake alone is way heavier. So
All right,
I can already see Jack needs to get his camera ready, Emery as well. We're going to have like the Rocky training montage where he's like chasing a chicken in his sweats, and he's like just getting ready for the keg stand too.
We're going to do it again.
I just lost a clubber line.
Over under has
Yeah.
been set.
Yeah.
Over under 13.5. Okay, quickly, this is looking back at the Big 12 media preseason football poll. 2023, Texas was picked 1, Kansas State 2, Oklahoma State 7th.
Yeah, got that one way wrong
right.
on the Cowboys.
22, coming off an incredible year, Baylor was picked as the preseason favorite, Oklahoma 2nd, Kansas State 5th, TCU 7th, and that's who played 5 and 7.
Yeah, TCU, I mean, even if you gave them some love, there's no way you had them going to the national freaking championship game.
Well, no,
I mean,
you didn't
that
have
was,
them playing for the Big 12 title either.
Well, yeah, I know, but even if you did, you didn't have them going to the national championship game is what I'm saying. There might have been somebody out there that did have them a lot closer than that, but yeah, that's where the narrative comes from of one team's been right so far.
You look at this. 2021, Oklahoma the pick. Iowa State 2nd because they had played Oklahoma the year before.
That's what I was saying
Oklahoma
earlier.
State was 4th. Baylor was 8th.
That's what I was saying earlier, though. I think everybody looks at what happened last year and they're like, well, they're bringing everybody back. Let's just do
That's why
OU
Baylor
Kansas
was-
State again.
Yep.
And let's do Baylor again, even though they were awful the year after 2021. So, yeah.
2020, Oklahoma was the favorite. Oklahoma State was picked 2nd. Iowa State, who played in that game, was picked 3rd. So that's pretty darn close.
respectable.
In 19,
I shouldn't say Baylor was awful in 2022. They won 6 games. That was just an awful ending to the season.
2019, Oklahoma was the favorite. Texas was the runner-up. Baylor played Oklahoma. They were 6th that year. So the year that they played in the Big 12 championship, they were ranked 6th in the media poll and 8th. That means this year at pick 12th. Okay, in 2018, Oklahoma was the favorite. 4 straight years. It might have been 8 or 9. West Virginia was picked 2nd. Texas, with Ellinger and company, played them. They were picked 4th. So look at the history. Very rarely hasn't worked out, where somebody wasn't 5th or 7th or 8th or whatever in the media preseason poll.
Well, it sounds like typically you usually get more years than not, one of them correct, and then somebody's from the very middle of the pack.
Yes.
So, yeah, that would lead you to believe that could very well be Kansas State or Utah versus, like, West Virginia or, like, TCU would make sense this year.
It wasn't the case. 23 it was. Texas was the favorite. Baylor was the favorite. Oklahoma was nope. 21. So 5-7 in 22, 4-8 in 21, 1-3 in 2020, 1-6 in 2019, and 1-4 in 2018. The Oklahoma thing was pretty easy. It's like picking an apple off a tree that they were going to be in the Big 12 championship.
And I think that's something that got lost, and maybe not so much in Big 12 circles, but the fact that they didn't even play for it the last couple of years is, and I know there was a coaching change, and the Riley era ended the way it did, all messy, but still, that contributes to the whole, are they ready for the SEC thing, and you know, the whole narrative that's running there right now, as opposed to Texas, who's coming in as hot as they've ever been. Yeah, Oklahoma wasn't even quite, even getting to the championship game there. So, as a fan, disappointing to see them not close strong, even though they're still winning 10 games every year. It's just didn't get the championship game.
Kim Coulter has now added $100 to the staff if Paul can get past, hold on, where is it? $100 to the staff if you can get past 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Ooh, buddy.
Okay. That's that's 100 overall. That's like 15 or 25 bucks a piece.
Emery, toss me a water right now. I'll start chugging.
You got your breathing device. You got to really. That's a long way to go.
I do think we're going to need an extra body in here though on that day to be the one that's holding the nozzle.
Further question: are y'all technically staff?
Yes. Question for you: are you technically? Yeah, no, we're all technically staff. Yes.
I think some of y'all are independent contractors.
Yeah. All right. I got one more
water.
stat for you. No, I'm going to wait on this until after we get the USA Today Kasem.
That wasn't anywhere close to 10. Was that your tryout run? Or
no, that was just.
Can you hold yourself underwater for 10 seconds?
I'll go try that too at the pool this weekend.
Okay. All right. Because it's a lot harder than you think.
All right. Hey.
Well,
I'm also buoyant.
What are we doing? We doing 75K. Paul does Keckstand Part 2. We doing 100K. I mean, 100K. Yeah. I'm doing a show with no hat on. So.
We need to. Whatever we do, we're gonna have to sneak it in. Again, it cannot be very publicized.
I gotta go against the man law on that one.
What?
You know me.
Oh God.
All right.
Esther extraordinaire.
A little bit later on, Dennis Dodd had a 9-3 college football talk discussion. Pretty good, interesting stuff on that. We'll get to that after our next guest, who's here to talk college football next. And this is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace. And the average MRI is over $1,000. It's $1,100 or more now. And theirs is $497 or less every single time. Dr. Rob Maxey and the owners, partners of Ideal MRI in Waco have done a phenomenal job. People drive in from other parts of the state to get their MRI right here. State-of-the-art imaging machine. Great techs and specialists. I've told you this before. I got a little claustrophobic to me. Probably sometimes comes and go, but getting inside of an MRI machine when you are wheeled or rolled or whatever that is, back into that machine, and it's like right here. And if you look up, I look up, I'm done. I'm spooked. I don't do that. They'll put like a little wet, like a hand towel on my nose and above my eyes, just so I don't accidentally look up and there's something right in front of me. They just make it special. And it's not always easy for someone to have their body put into basically a morgue or a tomb like that. Ideal MRI will find out what is hurting you, what your doctor needs to know so they can go further in helping you get through the pain, whatever it might be, surgery or just physical therapy. Ideal MRI, $497 or less every single time inside the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in the southern part of Waco.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services' industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Our guest earlier today, Liam Rooney from the Tallahassee Democrat, was suggested to me by Essen Kassem, who's now with the USA Today, who covered Florida State for the Democrat, Tallahassee Democrat. Essen now joins us. Essen joins us now on 365 Sports. We appreciate it. He was really good. Very nice suggested. Essen, we appreciate that. You now are covering the entire full meal deal, the overview of college football. Do you have your schedule? Are you going to travel to cover games on site? How are you going to do your job this year?
I'm going to be actually comfortably in front of my couch and being able on my couch and being able to sit in front of the TV and watch this year. So be able to watch a lot more games this year.
See, you know what's funny is that sometimes you be like, oh, I get to go these places. And then when they're like, well, what if you just watch more at home? And you're like, even better.
Yeah.
That's great.
You get a better feel of the game sometimes, and you can also go to the bathroom whenever you want.
Well, we'll start with FSU. We did have Liam on. He was great. What do you think? Is there any carryover or hangover or anything like that, in your opinion, for how last year ended?
I would like to believe not, just because I know how Mike Norvell operates down there. He let the team stew on that long enough, probably longer than he probably wanted the team as well to do it as well. And he's probably moved on in his mind. Obviously he's mentioned a few times to the players mentioned they're never going to forget it. But I think they're probably going to use it as fuel this year to remind themselves, at least it can't happen again.
Essen, I know that you're on the national beat now, but what's your sense on what will happen ultimately with the ACC right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, for FSU fans looking for a quick exit, Clemson fans looking for a quick exit, I think it's going to be drawn out a little bit. It's going to be a process, as we see with legal matters. Ultimately, I do think FSU leaves. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the market looks like when they are able to get out of that, whatever that looks like in the future. How much ever they have to pay, just because how much sense does Florida State make for a team that already has the Florida market in the SEC? And then the Big Ten probably, I think the North Carolina schools are more appetizing in the sense that you could tap a new market. And so I think it's going to be interesting on both ends to see just what the interest is from Florida State when they get to leave, who's interested and what's the fit, because money talks, as we all know.
Essen, how much does Georgia Tech side of things interest you? Haynes King coming back at quarterback. It's interesting. I was just curious about just the excitement level and also your perspective here with the Yellow Jackets, because it's one thing to go play in a neutral location. It's another to go play overseas and then play a conference opponent on top of that to start the season. It's just it's an interesting way to begin things.
No, exactly. It's very interesting. I'm not going to predict Georgia Tech to win this game, but I think that people are, the 11-point underdogs is interesting. I think they keep it close. I think it's a Georgia Tech, team that you mentioned. You turned a very talented quarterback in Haynes King. Well, interesting to see how Florida State struggled against running quarterbacks last year and the year before. So it'll be interesting to see, dual threat quarterbacks and see how they can handle him. And then Brent Key, since he's taken over that program, I think he's been one of the better coaches in the country. Has done a good job to lead that program.
For the last several years, I think Brett McMurphy is the one that actually had this, and we went over several notes about the AP Top 25 poll, but it almost annually, 25 or 30 years, except once or twice, a team ranked inside the top 10 will not even be ranked by the end of the year. I don't think you have the top 10 in front of you, but do you have any idea who that might be this year?
Let's see. That's a good question. I do think that, I think Florida State was 10, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely.
They are. They are a team I could see, going anywhere from, I think, from, being a 7-5, 6-6 team to a 12-1 team, mostly because of that schedule, but also because, they do have the talent. They have some good talent there. But it is a team that I could see going either way. I think any team from 8 through 22 is something that, is pretty even. I would say there's a cutoff. Like, just looking at that, Penn State, Michigan has questions about them. Missouri, Missouri could be a team that's 11 that could be in the top 10 just because of schedule.
So I'm gonna list the 10 teams, and you tell me absolutely you would not bet anything like personally, but will not be ranked. I'm going to go through the 10. You just say yes or no. Georgia.
Yes.
Ohio State.
Yes.
Oregon.
Yes.
Texas.
Yes.
Alabama.
Yes.
Ole Miss.
That's an interesting one. Will Lane Kiffin to be there at the end of the year?
Notre Dame.
Yes.
Penn State.
Yes.
Michigan.
Yes.
And then Florida State.
I'll go ahead and say for now, no.
There you go. See, when he stops covering them, he just goes angry with them. I mean, just like
I guess you scare me.
But
a little.
I could see a Michigan falling off the rails only because of the transition, but not out of the
definitely
top.
no.
Yeah. Okay, Paul, anything?
What team do you think is not getting talked about enough?
Just in the top 25 or in general?
In general.
I mean, I feel like Miami, they were 19, is a team with the, Cam Ward, president, that veteran presence at quarterback. You can make the argument Tyler Van Dyke was a better quarterback, but is Cam Ward a better fit in offense? Just a team that could, I don't want to sneak up because I feel Miami's always too big of a flashy school that they never sneak up on you, but they have a schedule that doesn't look, overly crazy. Obviously that week 1 game against Florida will be interesting because it's on the road in the swamp. You never know what's going to happen in that kind of game. But yeah, I think Miami's a team that could win the ACC. You mentioned Brett McMurphy earlier. He had Virginia Tech as a playoff team, so that was interesting.
Saw that, yeah.
I do think they could surprise people. I'm not sure if they're a playoff team, but I do think they could surprise some people.
All right, I'm going to ask you this. What do you consider, what credentials must you have to be considered a college football blue blood?
I'll start off, annual contender for, college football playoffs, all that. Got to have the history behind you, multiple national championships, and the fan base. I think that the pedigree, the fan base, just the stadium that people know when they mention you, I don't want to go play there.
Yeah, it's debatable because it would include whether Miami and some of those schools that have multiple national titles are considered a blue blood.
I would say if they win in the past 2 decades, they have to win at least one championship, and Obviously, Miami has not.
Yep. Yeah, that eliminates Miami. That eliminates what? Let's see, Texas. It's still they're in that bubble of 20. Oklahoma hasn't won since 2001. Nebraska since 97. Man,
Michigan would have been now just back in
97. Yeah. It's always fun to watch. Yeah. So he mentioned Brett McMurphy. McMurphy has Texas State as the G5 representative as far as the highest rated conference champion. G.J. Kinney and company on a surging with what he's done there in just 1 year, 2 years.
Essen, do you have a favorite G5 team, a team you think could disrupt? I mean, you mentioned Florida State with their schedule. One of those teams is Memphis, who should be pretty darn good this year.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Memphis is a good one. I'm going to say a team I used to cover, could surprise some people, Jacksonville State. Year one under Rich Rodriguez when they were now eligible for the, a bowl game was pretty spectacular first season that they put together. So could be interesting to see how they put it together and look this year.
Yeah, that Jacksonville State, they've come up. That'd be a long way in a hurry. But then Texas State, the same thing with what they have. But he has them as the G5 highest ranked conference champion. Okay, let's look at the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma entering, then we'll get to the Big 12. When you look at the SEC, there's like 6 teams that probably are pretty good, might win 9 games or more, maybe 7 or 8. Which of the ones that aren't a part of that list do you feel like has a chance to win an extra game or 2 this year?
I'm going to go with the team with the toughest schedule in the country, because when you get so many chances,
right,
you have a chance to pull the upset. So I'll say Florida. They could probably win an extra game or 2. Obviously, Billy Napier is desperate for this year for workout. Otherwise, he'll be gone. So I made the Lane Kiffin clip earlier. Will he be at Ole Miss by the end of the year? Will he be looking at houses when Ole Miss is in Gainesville at the end of the season?
That's exactly right.
Do you? I know that the Vegas odds, I think, are on Billy Napier as the first coach to be fired, or at least he's close to the top.
I think I saw that from Bet Online. Yeah. He's at the top.
Yeah, they have the toughest schedule. How much of a break do you think that the powers that be of Florida will give him just going into the season because of that schedule, even though they know and they're telling him to improve?
I think he probably still has to be at least a bowl team. I think maybe 6-6, you adjust for the toughness of the schedule, and that probably helps them out. But outside of that, I think if you miss a bowl game, it's hard at Florida with those boosters. It's hard for him to keep that job, I think.
Yeah. Of the incoming 4, Utah seems to be the one, along with Arizona, prepared to play possibly at the top level in the Big 12. But what are your thoughts about the Big 12 with so many new teams? 8 new teams in the last basically 2 years that have joined the conference.
Yeah, no, it's hard to keep a conference lineup these days, isn't it? There's so many changes all the time. But I mean, all those, I think you mentioned, I think Utah, with a great coach coming in, is going to be interesting to see, how they fit in and how they play. Their style of football is interesting. They more so than other Pac-12 teams, they like to play a slower game and play well. So I like Utah. I think if I had to pick one team right now, it's the Utah probably could win that conference this year.
Essen, we appreciate your time, man. Appreciate it. We'll have you again once the season we start to get wins and losses and results and stats.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you very much. Yes, Essen Kassim from USA Today with us. Okay, so Brett McMurphy has the bowl projections and all that, but his 4 top seeds, Oregon, not a surprise, Alabama, Miami to win the ACC, that's different, and Utah to be the 4th seed winning the Big 12.
Yeah, I think, no Ohio State in that top 4, so Oregon winning the Big 10 would obviously be a pretty big deal. Somebody else you mentioned there.
1 is Oregon, 2 is Alabama in the SEC, not Georgia, Texas, or anyone else.
Yeah, that would be surprising.
Miami and Utah. So
Miami's not surprising, though. Miami, who else is everybody saying is going to win the league? FSU is the favorite, or you want to throw Clemson in there, but Miami's getting a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not being named the outright favorite.
Well,
but they're right there in the mix of teams that everybody's saying they're the sleeping giant or the dark horse. Miami's been that a lot.
Not only that, the ACC that Clemson and Florida State don't even make the tournament, it's going to be Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Is the
Now,
next best ACC team.
If you ask me on paper right now, who has the best quarterback in the ACC, I would say Miami. I think Cam Ward is the best one. If you ask me who has the best running back in the ACC right now, I would say it's Damian Martinez. So I would say Miami. Wide receivers, we can maybe split hairs across that, but they have a good group of them. If you ask me who had the best offensive line right now, I would say Florida State, Virginia Tech, or Miami kind of all lined up in there. So there's a common theme here, and it's Miami. If you ask me who had the best defensive line, I would say right now it's Miami. Secondary, nah, but I mean, they've got a lot of the positions locked down. Their problem is not going to be starting level talent. It's going to be maybe some depth that they don't quite have yet, and getting past, Mario Cristobal's got to get out of his own way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a bad coach. He's got to break his bad habits.
Yeah. That game against, what was it, Georgia Tech?
Yeah, but it's not the first time that's happened in his career.
No, but that one there, that's a hickey forever. That's not coming off. The other teams that he has outside those four, Brett McMurphy, at Ohio State would be at 5 and would play Texas State in the opening round. Has 8 and 9 LSU and Penn State. They would play. Iowa at 11. Georgia at 6. Georgia's actually, it does get in. And then Virginia Tech and Ole Miss. So Texas doesn't get in. Georgia does, but as the second best non-conference champion behind Ohio State. So I kind of like it because it's a little bit of newness and a little. It's not the same stale, here we go, cookie cutter.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is going to break the mold of every single thing we've ever been used to. And I think, especially just reading our chat alone, you can see, then you take that to Twitter and you take that to other places. There's a large section of the college football fandom that hasn't wrapped their head around it yet because they haven't seen it, right? So they haven't seen a 12-team playoff play out. They haven't seen. I think there's going to be a lot of fans that are sweating towards the end of the year because the team is 10-2, and then they realize, like, oh, in the playoff, they got a home game. Oh, that's not the worst thing in the world. Okay, because they just won't pick up on it until they experience it. So, yeah, who knows what's going to happen, and who knows how you're going to.
I like the fact that someone said he lost his mind. I like it. I like it only because it's different. And then there's no one like, oh my God, that's ridiculous.
Here's the thing. It's just I could create something interesting too. Like, we'll see how accurate it is, but I mean, to just go against the grain, I can appreciate that as well. We'll see on the whole accuracy of it, but yeah, he's taking some shots in the dark. I mean, if you are looking to do that, you got any number of teams you can choose from. So throw Virginia Tech in that bad boy. Say Georgia's going to finish third in the SEC. Yeah, he's got some different opinions. So that is definitely breaking from the status quo. Whether intentionally trying to just shake it up for the sake of being different, or if that's how he really feels, I hope he's right, because I think that kind of a shakeup would mean that a lot of really interesting stuff happened to get to a point where Virginia Tech's in the playoff and Georgia's the third SEC team and Texas doesn't make it, and so on and so forth. Texas State's playing Ohio State in the first round of the playoff at the Horseshoe. I could see some of that coming to fruition, but it is definitely cutting against the grain. The thing is with the grain, though, is, guys, there's been 9 months of that thing getting formed. That's all we've had is to talk about. And so at this point, every opinion's basically happened and every roster's been looked at, and everybody has come to the same general conclusion that for right now, on paper, these are the certain best teams. And so, yeah, now we get to see whether that's actually true or not. And Brett definitely went against the grain with some of those picks because that's not necessarily the favorites. And the odds say, as much as I was sitting there struggling with my Big 12 pick of Utah, Kansas State, I think those are the 2 best teams. The odds say those probably aren't going to be the teams there. I think if you were to ask me to make a playoff, it's probably going to be like what a lot of other people would have, Georgia at 1 and so on and so forth. Whereas Brett did a little bit differently, and I hope that he's accurate, because that, again, means that we had a wild-ass season that is going to be a lot of fun to follow. Yeah, there's some big boys that aren't included, like Michigan coming off the national title, which there's a chance they fall backwards. Dino Babers, Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver.
Here's a quote. I'm not sure I've ever met anyone like him. The only person I've seen with catch radius like that is Larry Fitzgerald. I'm just telling you, he's not normal. He may be better than anyone I've ever coached.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Have you watched Tetero McMillan play?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a badass. He's very, very good, and he's going to be a first-team All-Big 12 wide receiver, barring something happening that we can't foresee right now. Lord, knock on wood again, second or third time this show, that it's not because of health, because he is somebody that can definitely catch your attention and keep you glued to a game because of how good he can be. So the combination of him with Noah Fafita is a reason why a lot of people think Arizona might be getting slept on because of the fact they do return a lot outside of those guys as well. But in particular, because of those guys, that's arguably the best quarterback-wide receiver combo, not just in the Big 12, but one of them in the country. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see what he can do. And that says a lot, too. And, Babers was here during the early Baylor years. Would he have coached many of the good receivers they had, or is that right before?
Kendall Wright?
Josh Gordon? Okay.
Josh Gordon, he was
Kendall
there.
Wright?
Josh Gordon gets points deducted for his head.
I thought Dino, I don't think.
But I know he was here. He was
He
here
would've
when
been here
Josh
for
Gordon was
Corey.
here, and I think that's right after then was when he left.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been. He was nowhere close for Corey Coleman, I don't think.
He would have been here for Kendall Wright, though.
Yeah, he would
have been here for Kendall Wright.
He was at Baylor in 08, 9, 10, and 11. Yep. He would have been there for some of those. Not for Katie Cannon. Not Josh Gordon.
No, Josh Gordon. He was here for Josh Gordon.
Okay. That's a pretty good list, though. And so there we are. He would know, and I'm not comparing those guys to Larry Fitzgerald, but Tetero and McMillan with a lot of love right there.
A lot of people are, by the way, on the chat are, old Barncat says, "Are you nuts, Miami? No way." I'm saying on paper right now, they have not. I mean, they beat Clemson last year, and that was a big win. And that was their first really big win in years, beating Clemson when they did. And so they've got to do more of that. But their talent, starter for starter, is as good as anybody or better in the league right now. But I would say that Clemson, Florida State have better overall depth and able to withstand the injuries. If Cam Ward gets hurt, Miami doesn't have, Florida State, if any of those guys get hurt, but if Cam Ward gets hurt or if one of their better wide receivers gets hurt, they don't have the guys ready to go maybe in behind them like some of the other teams do. But even then, I think that the depth of the league and the ACC across the board, there's not a lot of teams that can withstand that like some of the elite teams in the SEC can right now.
Scotty B, how about Terrence Williams? Was he there early on? Because he caught the pass against OU in 2011.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have been.
I mean, if he was like a true freshman or something. I don't know. You can look it up.
Just somebody else. Letting somebody from the chat room get a little bit of name recognition. Thank you to
the point being that he coached some pretty good receivers, and the fact that he's saying Tetero McMillan's the best one of them, that says a lot coming from Dino Babers.
All right, when we come back, Dennis Dodd and the stats and trends, by the way, of what would have happened the last almost 30 years had the college football playoff, the way it is set up for this year, looked and who would have made it, how many teams would have been a part of that. And then also a couple of nuggets. The AP All-American team came out. How many from the Big 12 are involved? We'll get to that and more. And this is 365 Sports, and every day we appreciate your time.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for your automotive needs, whatever those needs may be. Are you looking to get into a brand new vehicle? They can certainly hook you up with one of those. You looking to get into a pre-owned vehicle? They can get you into one of those. You're looking to get body work done on your vehicle? They can help you out with that as well. But in particular right now, it's time for football, and that means big savings on cars and trucks at the Richard Carr Kickoff to Savings event as they celebrate the return to football, and that includes the multi-pro tailgate, first-class interior, and power to get any job done on the GMC Sierra truck, the truck for Texans who want to drive the best. Right now, save $9,000 on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock with a 10 or newer trade-in for qualified buyers. Find Sierra trucks under $40K right now over at Richard Carr with the trade-in, various other deals as well. See dealer for details to get more on how you can maximize the savings during the kickoff to savings event over at Richard Carr. Also, they've got a lot loaded with quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. Over 100 highly inspected used cars and trucks, all priced to move on the lot right now. And remember, their goal over at Richard Carr is always 100% credit approval. It's time for football. It's time to get yourself into a new GMC Sierra, or it's maybe time to get yourself into a new pre-owned vehicle, or maybe it's just time to get your car worked on. But it's definitely time for football and for savings at the Kickoff to Savings event going on right now at Richard Carr. Go check them out. Visit richardcarr.com or off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
New arrivals just dropped at Barefoot Campus Outfitter in Waco. Looking for the best Baylor gear? Barefoot is the place to grab your gear. Game day polos, tees, tanks, caps, clear stadium bags, jewelry, and more. Barefoot Outfitters has all the essentials with unique campus apparel and offering comfortable garments and designs. Long-lasting images that people continue to enjoy wearing time and time again. Located right off I-35 on Spate, or shop at barefootcampusoutfitter.com and get free shipping on orders $75 or more. Go Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Call Deborah Holder at 254-300-7202 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% on your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, 365 Sports. We mentioned earlier climbing past the 60,000 subscriber mark. We appreciate you. If you haven't, if you don't mind, hit the like, and if you haven't subscribed button, click that too. Get involved. When we do our college football pick'em this year, and that TexasBeefHouse.com $100 gift cards, the person who put together the money to buy that $1,500 in gift cards wants that promotion, the pick'em, to be for subscribers only. And I think most of you are involved in that, but that kind of will be something that's a little bit of a different change with what we do this year. The winner each week will get $100 gift card from TexasBeefHouse.com. Now, Dennis Todd, he had this story from earlier. I hear a lot of talk, and I heard a lot of talk about a 9-3 team in the college football playoff. It's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot. This from my research in late May at SEC spring meetings. Going back to 1998, the year that Tennessee won the national title, and plugging in the 12-team bracket that we'll have this year and how the criteria fits, a total of 28 teams with at least 3 losses would have made the field over 26 years, and all of those 28 would have been from what is the current Power 4 conferences. 16 combined would have come from the Big Ten and the SEC, and only 7 years would there have been no 3-loss teams. So there would have been some years where multiple 9-3 teams would have made the college football playoff, and 94 Florida State would have gotten in one year too.
Yeah. Look, as someone who was privy to 15 straight top 5 finishes, Florida State would have made the playoff more than anyone over that stretch, and I would love to see it back then. But yeah, 3 losses, get used to it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to a couple teams this year, especially with the way that scheduling is that there might be teams that get off light, but the way that you're going to see, especially in the early going of this, teams you haven't seen before, you're not used to, that's a factor I don't think we talk enough about. Styles are going to be a little bit different. So this is a whole new ballgame this year.
Well, that averages out to 1 team a year. So,
yep.
Well,
I mean,
on some of those years, it was multiple 3-loss teams.
No, on average, he said. 26 years, 28 made it.
Yeah.
But you're right, Craig. On average, there were some years where more than 1. Yeah,
it's really not that big of a deal. In a 12-team playoff, if you have like 1 team who's got 3 losses, that's not that big of a deal. I think that's going to probably be commonplace because let's face it, it's going to happen because there's going to be a team out of the Big Ten or the SEC that's going to have 2 or 3 losses that is going to get in because they're from the Big Ten or the SEC. That's why I expect them to get in there.
And also because of who those 3 losses could be against, like Georgia, Texas, LSU, or someone like that.
There's a viral tweet going around. I take that back. I don't know how viral it is, but there's an Oklahoma State fan. I wish I would have bookmarked it. They were pointing out about one of the years Bama went to the national title. They didn't beat a single team, or so, it was some crazy ass stat about like how they had played like 2 teams with winning records or something crazy, and they got the nod over Oklahoma State to get in the national championship game. There is that benefit of the doubt that exists.
Sure.
A 3-loss Big 12 team's not getting in the college football playoff unless they win the championship. I don't believe they're getting the benefit of the doubt. If it's Alabama, yes, it can depend somewhat on who their losses are to, but I think there's also an argument to be made that it doesn't always necessarily matter who those losses are to because, after all, when in doubt, go default. Well, it's the SEC and it's Bama, so they just automatically are better than everybody. And they get that benefit of the doubt that I don't think anybody else gets that.
I agree. And for the most part, I understand that, and especially the name of the program, but the SEC. But if they're 3 losses, the question may not even be who the 3 losses are. Who did they beat? Like if they have beaten Georgia, and I don't think they play them this year unless they meet in the championship game. But if they would have beaten, let's say, 4 top 10 teams and then lost to Mississippi State and Florida, how do you balance that?
That was the Oklahoma State gist of the tweet, though. Was it like the year that they got in was, and damn it, I wish I could find it. No, they had played like 2 teams with above average records, or had wins against like 2 teams with above. It was some crazy stat where they played a bunch of bad teams, but it was the SEC. And so they got the benefit of the doubt. And that's going to happen in this playoff every single year. That's my point, is that we talk about just 3 teams. It's not the same for everybody. It's not the same if you're a 3-loss team in the Big 12 versus a 3-loss team in the SEC or in the Big 10. It's just not. We don't need to pretend that it is. If you're a 3-loss ACC team, you have a way harder.
You better win it.
You better win the damn ACC, or you are not getting into the playoff. You could be a 3-loss SEC or Big 10 team and not win the conference, and you're going to get in. And that's my point.
There may be one from each conference that might. And you really just honestly, I understand that they have all the trophies and they have a chunk of them. The Big 10 really doesn't have that many, although Michigan most recently
just got most of the
won
media.
But but
it's true.
It's just let it be what it is and stop but they're playing a harder schedule. No, the best 12 should get in.
Well, we've already gone against that multiple times.
But I don't know why that's so damn hard.
Because
you're right.
it's not. It's because you're trying to make it too complicated. Because it's really very simple. Who will give us the most TV ratings and who will sell the most tickets?
Yeah, when all that started
happening,
to
the party.
Yeah, that was the dumbest damn thing. That we even allowed that to happen. I mean, but you're right. No, you're right.
No, and look, it's a sport I love, but we can call its flaws and call it for what it is. And there is very much a country club. And to sit here and go well, in the history of playoff, these 3 losses, it's not the same for everybody. 3 losses in this conference is not the same as 3 losses in this conference. Yes, it will matter what those 3 losses are ultimately, but we've seen examples before where not even having that impressive resume, but just having the right patch on your jersey makes up for a loss or two or a lack of top 25 wins here or there. And it doesn't work that way over here, but it works that way here and here more often than it doesn't. And that's the part about the playoff that I'm hesitant about, but I'm also very curious about, is how much does the bias just shine through now? And how much does it just come into clear focus of kind of the way the strings are being pulled?
You know what?
What was the big conversation the moment this was announced? How many SEC and Big Ten teams are going to be in the playoff field? What was it? What was the next big headline? SEC Big Ten commissioners already jockeying for automatic bids for multiple teams. What was the headline after that? Will the group of 5 even be involved in the future of the playoff? What's the headline after that? The group of 5 should go and explore their own play. Like every single report.
You know what? Why wouldn't somebody that's on? I know that you have a spokesperson. And why you would ever want to be that, I don't know, although it's a little bit different now with the expanded. Like, why can't somebody who's on that committee have the balls to stand up and say something or get quoted?
Because they got more of the ladder to climb after that in their career.
But someone like Jim Grove is retired.
But nobody cares what he has to say.
That's the thing.
But he could say it, though. At least say it.
I'm sure he could say it, but like outside of that,
Jim Grove's trying to enjoy retirement.
But they also have contracts where they sign these things.
I know.
They don't want to get sued.
I know.
So they have NDAs. My point being is, why should there be an NDA for a discussion about the college football playoff?
Yeah.
What is the secret?
I know.
What's the why can't
when
you?
I tried to reach out to him after last year, he can't talk.
Okay, we can hear anybody's opinion. Like if you go to your city council and ask them, like, "Hey, why did we not, pave the streets out here?" And he'll tell you candidly, like, "Hey, well, I mean, like we had the money in the budget for the street paving or the
my mistress needed a new car and
the high school gym. So we voted high school gym. Next year will be street paving." Okay, why can't you just go to the committee and then have them, and, the guy could have been like, listen, there's too many potholes in the street. The gym's fine. Why can't you just ask them, like, well, I got outvoted. It was 9-3.
Well, there's definitely some politics involved in it, and I don't know what good it would do at Jim Grove because it's not going to change anything. But
I think what I'm saying is it would be refreshing somebody just to say something.
For you, I guess so. Like, we're saying it. I'm saying it, and so maybe it's refreshing for somebody to hear, but it's not going to.
We're not on the playoff committee. I want somebody within the room to say something.
But he's on the committee, so what's he going to do to hurt himself and not get an invite back at some point in time? But, and here's the deal. I'm not opposed to a 3-loss team from a league saying we're better because of the league we played in. If your resume says that, if I look and I see, okay, you played this many ranked teams, but not just because you have the patch on your jersey, do you automatically get a bump above everybody else, which is what I do feel like is happening with more regularity. I'm all for having 6 teams from the Big Ten if they're deserving of it. My problem with the whole thing is we haven't even played a game in 2024 for this 12-team playoff, and we've already seen a dozen stories from the biggest writers in college football trying to already change the narrative for how teams get selected before we played an effing game yet.
Yeah.
We're already talking about how the 2 leagues are going to change it in the future to further benefit after having all of the benefits to begin with, and that's the part that drives me insane. We're already being told they're better, even though they haven't played a game yet, and that's the bias when you hear, what's SEC bias? That's SEC bias because some years, Big Ten bias, it does ring true. Your 4 losses were more impressive than the Big 12 team's 2 losses because of who you played on your schedule. But that's not every single team every single year, and now it's become where that is the case, where just you get that benefit of the doubt no matter what.
Exactly.
And I think that's garbage.
I agree. That's just because but you could look at the last 20 years or so, and they have a lot to back up.
Well, and that's what shuts up everything, and that's why that league is what it is because of the championships, and that's why all this talk about the Big 12 and what do they need to do. Guys, I've been saying this for 2 years now, if not longer than that. I've been saying it once every couple of months. Your answer to what the Big 12 can do to be better, to make more money, to close the gap, to whatever it is you're looking for them to do to improve themselves, there's only one thing, and no, it's not private equity. Go win some dadgum football games, and not just games, but games that matter. K-State, go beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and have Alabama say, well, we didn't want to be there anyways.
Like Georgia did with Texas.
Like Alabama did when Oklahoma beat them in the Sugar Bowl years ago with Trevor Knight. Oh, well, they didn't want to be there anyways. That's fine.
You know what? That's ridiculous.
Okay, let's just stay on track. It is.
I get it, but that's so ridiculous that anyone allows them to even say that.
Well, it's free country.
Yeah, that's true.
And so,
But I like, again, Craig's right. The path is when you and them are here, you win. That's it. That's the only way. And then the next time somebody else and them are here, they do it too. So that you can't just say, well, I mean, that was one damn lucky Iowa State team.
Well, especially now, because what's going to happen is if you get your Iowa State and your TCU into the playoff this year and they get beat in the first round, be like, see, told you those Big 12 teams, they don't deserve 2 spots in here. Look at all the SEC or Big 10 teams in the second round. Never mind that like 2 of them got buys here, but that. And so what's the way to change that narrative?
Win.
Go win. You need Iowa State and TCU to go both win their first round playoff games and get to the next level and have, and that applies to the ACC or to, well, really we're running out now. That's the only 2 leagues that really need to do that. But that's all you can do, baby, is just go win games. And
all right.
That's the only way you change the narrative.
So how many, and this is off the top of my head, I can't think of more than 2 or 3, and I don't even know who those, how many non-conference games that Big 12 teams play are bangers?
Oh, like less than a handful this year.
I don't even know if it counts all 5 fingers.
Oh, I think there's 5. I mean, but not like, I mean, by your definition, maybe 1 or 2, because it's like when people use the term elite and they've watered it down to where it just means you're pretty good in some cases, like the elite of the elite. No, the elite is like the very best, like not just pretty good, but like the great, right?
Like Texas Tech and Oregon last year.
Off the top of my head,
that's an elite non-con matchup for Tech, yes.
But for the Big 12 playing other teams, Houston plays Oklahoma, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Houston plays Oklahoma. UCF plays Florida. Now, Florida may not be good, but, like, that's not UCF's fault. That's Florida's fault. That's still, good on them for scheduling a game, although I'm sure UCF wanted it more than Florida did. West Virginia plays Penn State.
Yep.
So that's a big banger there. There's a couple others.
There's not a lot, though.
Arkansas, Oklahoma State.
Arkansas, Oklahoma State.
BYU and TCU both play SMU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got
and don't forget
that's a good game for bragging
Arizona
rights.
and Kansas State is a non-conference game.
Yeah,
Baylor and Utah is a non-conference game.
Yeah. I mean, they are. I don't consider those since you're in the same league, but they are technically. But the point being,
they were scheduled as that.
But they have to play an extra conference game where other people don't. Stu. So that's,
well, one of the things about also losing Texas and Oklahoma and their popularity and all that is those 2 schools, for the most part. Now, last year Oklahoma's non-conference. That usually
Colorado, Nebraska.
There's another one. We think. But that's the one thing that Oklahoma and Texas did. Most every year, I had a non-conference banger. Like last year, Alabama. This year would have been Michigan. Oklahoma's played a lot of teams around the country that were really good. Tennessee, whoever else. But that's one of the things that's out the door, too.
Iowa State, Iowa, which has been,
win it.
Hit or miss for the Cyclones. But, yeah, go win those games and go win a bunch. I just want the winning to matter and it not be judged by like how many social media followers you have. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's all I'm asking for as a college football fan. And I do feel like it's leaned in the latter direction more lately where, like I said, just based on the patch you wear, your 3 losses, no matter what those actually were, or even your wins, matter differently because of said patch versus the other league before, or you're already a step ahead before a game's even been played.
Yep.
That's the part that I don't like, but I feel is definitely a reality. And so all you can do, like we've been saying all along and like we just got done saying, is go win games and go deep in the playoff. And there's nothing else. No private equity amount. Nobody's
school's getting bigger.
No, going to 28-team conferences that is going to change things the way that you want them to change as far as perception goes, other than just winning big games. So, yeah, West Virginia, go beat Penn State, and Houston, go upset Oklahoma. And, and then the tension that you're looking for, it's going to be there.
How tough is it for some of these schools that are like Big 12 level schools to schedule these games?
That's a concern. That's
you wonder
forward.
now with the college football playoff how many more of those games will be scheduled.
Well, the big conspiracy kind of take on like what can happen in the future. You know what I mean? Is that they stop scheduling those games and they just start playing each other for the majority of the season. That's the NFL route, I guess, to where you don't even get to play those games as much anymore, and that's a concern.
I think there's a group of teams where they could be solid, and so They could upset them. It's not going to be the big game where the loss doesn't matter too much because you know they're going to be great and they're not bad enough where you're like, we're going to beat them anyway. So I feel like those are the teams that could make bangers, but
you
they
got
just don't get to schedule them.
Baylor's non-conference schedule this year, Utah is included. In the future, they have the Oregons and Auburns on the list. That's when you have to win those games. Of course, that's down the road. One of the things about, you mentioned the NFL model, that would be great if they actually, you had divisions and wins, losses, whether you're 9-7 or 11-4, whatever it is, you win a division. But that's not the case anymore.
And I do think that if there is an Iowa State that were able to go a couple of rounds deeper in the playoff versus, let's say, Clemson or like an Auburn
Penn
or something
State.
like that.
Yeah.
Is you're doing it with a lot less resources. Like there's an advantage that's greater than it's ever been before. Not only has it been in the court of media opinion for 20 plus years now, but in public opinion, there's a lot of young people who are now going to college. That's all they've ever known is SEC dominance, right? But now with NIL, Georgia is well put together already. They're probably the top example, Alabama. But even Auburn, whoever, advantages they might have had against an Iowa State to begin with are much greater now just simply based on TV payouts in an era where you're paying players. So if you're in Iowa State and you're going a couple rounds deep, that's more impressive, depending on the opponents, than your Auburn going a couple rounds deep because you're not built from the ground floor.
But you need Iowa State to do that more than just 1 year.
You need them to do that, but if they do that, I do think there needs to be some extra weight put on the fact that a team like that can do that in an era like this where they are not supposed to be able to do that anymore. It's one thing to win a playoff game, but really, if you're outside of those two leagues, no one else is really built to win more than maybe a couple of those playoff games. And if anybody were to break through, maybe FSU is, but beyond that, there's a very short list.
Winning 4 games, maybe. Having to win 4 games,
yeah,
too.
I'd put the odds at near zero.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. Man, that's awesome. The dragon, I saw the dragon emoji popping up in the chat room. And Craig, good stuff. Appreciate the passion. Ollie Gordon, Tetaroa McMillan, and Travis Hunter were named first team Associated Press All-American, second team Nick Martin, the linebacker from Oklahoma State. Paul Catalina and his top 5.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Remember, use promo code 365sports for 10% off of your order. The season is upon us this week, and I am, over the next 2 weeks or so, going to be building the perfect college football team. Now, this is not 22 starters and a head coach and some other things. I had to morph it because as this goes along, you realize that college football is a little bit more malleable than it used to be. Used to, you could do 22 starters, a kicker, a punter, and be done with it, and then I'd have a top 24. But that's not necessarily the case. So we're going to build the perfect college football team, and we are starting in the secondary. At safety, Malachi Starks from Georgia. You know that pass you're going to throw deep across the middle? Don't do it if you see 24 sitting over there. Probably going to be the highest drafted safety upcoming in this year's draft. And while that does not a perfect team make when you have just tons of NFL players, he is built like the modern safety. He runs like the modern safety. And he's one of the best defensive players in the whole country, regardless of position. Malachi Starks is our first entrant onto the perfect team at safety. Also at safety, and a theme here of really good teams and really good players, Caleb Downs at Ohio State. This dude was the best transfer portal edition of all the transfer portal editions, in my opinion. He takes an already elite Ohio State defense into another level, and he's one of the reasons I keep saying that Ryan Day is out of excuses. Right here, when you've got a guy like Caleb Downs in a Jim Knowles defense, that is lethal. He was one of the best defensive players in the country for Alabama last year. As a true freshman, he's only going to get better in that system, and Ohio State has him for another year after this one. So 2 full seasons of Caleb Downs in Columbus is going to be huge. And let's go to nickelback. Now, more of a safety, but as I build my team, this is where I'm going to play him. 5'9", 185, Billy Bowman at OU. This guy's, that perfect kind of Bob Sanders, Buda Baker size where he can kind of get in and do things. He can line up in the slot. You can move him all around, all over the field. He's a difference maker for the Sooners and a player that I really like as he heads into the SEC. Let's go to cornerback. Will Johnson at Michigan. Best in the country, in my opinion. This guy, tall, long, lean, will miss his battery mate there in Mike Sainristil, who is off to the NFL, but going to be a top 15 pick in this year's draft, and you cannot get the ball past Will Johnson too often. You see how long these arms are? That is really tough for any receiver to get past, and he gets in, and not only these intercept passes, he breaks up a lot because of those long arms and messes with your game. And finally, Benjamin Morrison at Notre Dame. This is the perfect Marcus Freeman player. Bump and run coverage, whatever you want to do. Super strong, super athletic, super smart, and another guy you do not want to throw the ball on. I'll just tell you, in Paul Catalina's perfect college football team, which all these players are from top 15 teams, I understand that, are just glorious. And if you're wondering, where is, say, Travis Hunter? Well, I'll tell you this. No one will be on this team more than once. Only one entrant into the college football team, so keep an eye out for Travis Hunter maybe later on in the perfect college football team. So before you go making noise in the comments, just know I didn't forget about Travis Hunter. He's around, and if we need him, we'd throw him in. But these are the guys who are the best at their positions in the country, in my opinion, and ready to help the perfect college football team as built by me, Paul Catalina, the perfect college football team builder. I have no flaws. I promise you that. Okay, that's a lie. There's a flaw right there. Tomorrow, let's get into linebackers. Maybe some LSU fans would be interested in that one. We're wrapping it up right now.
All right, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. I can't wait for games, as Craig, you mentioned. The game, 11 o'clock kick on Saturday morning. Florida State in Dublin, Ireland against Georgia Tech. And then I think SMU plays this weekend, too. It's like 4 games. That's it. And then the full throttle the following week.
Man, I'm really torn on what I'm hoping for SMU this year. There is a really nice guy there at head coach who we've enjoyed talking to, and Rhett Lashley, I think, has a very bright present and obviously a future as well. think we're going to be talking about him for a very long time. I hope he does well. And then there are some segments of SMU fans, ever since they got that ACC invite, who are about the most intolerable people on the internet at times when it comes to going back and forth with Big 12 fans. I've stayed out of those back and forths, but I've seen plenty of them at this point because Elon's machine now just gives you stuff to look at that you didn't intend to or not. So I end up seeing all this stuff like SMU back and forth with Big 12 fans. Oh, man, they're back on the big stage, but I don't know like if I'm happy for them anymore, if I'm wanting them to have a lot of success, because I'm afraid of what success at this level would look like. If they're already like this just after getting the invite to the ACC, how will Pony Boy be if they beat Florida State in the first month of the season?
I'm sure there's even Oklahoma and Texas fans who probably had to hold their nose because of Baylor's runs that they made in 19 and 22 or 21, and then even there's that when SMU, and I know there's a few of them in the chat room that just hate them. That will never forgive them for what they did in whatever else it was when it comes to paying players, but. I have no problem with him. You know, I like who they have running the show. Like you said, Rhett Lashley, I like him. If he's successful. The fans, though,
there's not a lot of them.
No.
There's like 5 of them that are pretty consistent.
It's like same thing with Utah. Utah has about...
No, Utah's got a lot more fans. They've just got a handful that are the ones that you notice consistently.
The ones on Twitter,
SMU's just got it's like the handful, and they also happen to be the ones that are the ones you notice the most. But no, I just think that's going to be a super intriguing storyline because not only are they going to the league, but they're expected to be pretty good. So, like, how much disruption can they cause? But, yeah, we just got off on that tangent because you mentioned them playing as well. And there's just a lot of new, like them being in the ACC, all the new teams in the ACC, all the new teams in the Big 12, OU and Texas in the SEC, it's Big 10 teams. It's going to be crazy. I can't wait. New playoff.
You know, you guys talked about John Ruiz last Friday. I listened to a lot of that segment in a podcast. And also Michael Kelly was great at USF. Brett McMurphy, Miami announces a broad-based multi-year partnership making Mr. Meatmaster an official sponsor of the University of Miami Athletics.
All right. Okay. It's a funny name, so we'll see, I guess.
No word if Mrs. Meatmaster is on board as well.
Yes, well.
Mr. Meatmaster is a kind of, they're like Texas Beef House.
All right.
Kinda.
Okay, good. All right, good for them.
I mean, obviously, they are far lower quality and that they're willing
there you go.
to partner with, a low-rent organization like that. But...
Yeah, thank you for doing that, especially since they sponsor.
Oh, we're back under 60,000. Miami fans have all dropped off now.
All right, Jack McKenzie, wonderful, and also love the fact you jumped in with questions and comments, and appreciate that. And Emery Winter working on 365 Sports tonight. For Paul Catalina and for Craig Smoke, for all of our sponsors who make this happen every day, and especially for those of you who watch us, and thank you for doing that, whether it's on Twitter at 365 Sports YT, online, the podcast, 365 Sports YouTube. I'm David Smoke. Thank you for your time. We'll see you tomorrow, and have a great night.